Chapter 754. What did he say? His brother likes to eat seafood? Tai Mu and the others were in a daze. They did not understand what seafood was, until they saw the beautiful girl put the corpses of the Sea Clan members into her universe ring. Then they swallowed hard. So, the seafood is mine? That young man means his brother likes to eat us Sea Clan members? I thought I was arrogant enough, but when I saw the young man in black, I thought he was more arrogant than me. But I did not expect your brother to be even more arrogant. I have been in the sea domain for countless years, and only know that demons eat humans. This is the first time I have heard that someone likes to eat demons. Has the world changed? Damn. You've made me a little unsure of myself after all this. Young Master Tai Mu, this young man is a bit powerful. Why don't we strategically retreat and send someone to follow him to find young Master Xian? Smack. Before one of the Sea Clan prodigies could finish speaking, Tai Mu slapped him and sent him flying. Are you messing with me? I just joined young Master Xian yesterday. I haven't even started to show my worth, and you are already persuading me to join him? If this spreads, how can young Master Xian lead me in the future? If a young man of the human race can make you lose your courage, how can you work under young Master Xian in the future? No matter who comes today, I want this girl. I said it. Tai Mu snorted, and his body suddenly expanded. In a short time, he turned into a huge fish demon that was dozens of feet long. It was covered in black scales, giving off an indestructible feeling. Billowing demonic aura gushed out like a tide, stirring up the entire sea domain. Brat. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. As soon as he finished speaking, Tai Meng pounced on Ling Tian without any hesitation. Buzz. The waves of demonic aura were vast and mighty. Ling Tian's eyes flashed with seriousness. He stepped forward and blocked in front of Yi Sun. The immortal extermination sword in his hand suddenly shone with divine radiance. Vaguely, there seemed to be a celestial shadow that stepped through the void and pierced through the ages, standing above Ling Tian's head. Especially that pair of indifferent eyes, there was a myriad of strange phenomena. It was like a primordial light that swept away all evil in the world. Buzz. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, the ancient sword in Ling Tian's hand lightly slashed down. A wisp of extremely sharp cold light instantly shattered the world. It was condensed from countless Dao patterns and rushed toward Tai Meng. It was as if the Milky Way had fallen from the 9 heavens, illuminating the dark and deep sea region as bright as day. The heavens and the earth seemed to have fallen silent at this moment, and then the tune of the Grand Tao resounded slowly and shook the world. Before the sword arrived, Tai Mu's face was already filled with fear. Why did he suddenly have the urge to pee? However, now that he had revealed his true form, there was no way out. A scarlet light flashed in his fist-sized eyes. Strands of demonic chi condensed into scars in front of him, transforming into a 1,000-foot-long iron scale. Demonic runes flowed on it, containing supreme ferocious might. Boom! The sword light flashed like a white steed and landed on the iron scales in an instant. In the next moment, all the Sea Tribe prodigies' faces trembled violently. Even with Tai Zhao's strength, he couldn't stop the sword light for even a moment. Crack! The sound of something shattering resounded. Suddenly, cracks appeared on the iron scales, and in a moment, it turned into spiritual light and disappeared. However, the tens of thousands of sword intents didn't slow down and slash down horizontally. Damn it! How can this young human be so strong? Tai Yu's fierce eyes narrowed. Especially when he felt the immortal might contained in the sword light, he felt a trace of inexplicable despair in his heart. Pucci! At the moment of life and death, Tai Mu returned to his human form and barely avoided his vital parts. However, the sword light still pierced through his shoulder and chopped off his arm. Suddenly, several screams came from behind him. The Sea Tribe prodigies who were watching the battle from afar were slashed into nothingness by the remaining power of the sword. Gulp! Tai Mu swallowed his saliva and didn't even care about the sharp pain in his arm. He turned around and tried to escape. You want to leave? The corners of Ling Tian's mouth curled up into a cold smile. Even his eyes seemed to flash with a trace of scarlet. At this moment, his temperament began to become gloomy and evil, inexplicably making people feel cold all over. Tai Mu's body trembled, and even his footsteps seemed to be extremely messy. This young man. He's actually a sword demon. Buzz. The sudden sword hum sounded like the grudge of the nether prison ghost mansion. On the face of the immortal shadow above Ling Tian's head, there was a trace of a mocking and evil smile. The sword light bloomed and finally turned into tens of thousands of sword shadows, tearing the sea curtain apart. It was terrifying and terrifying, enveloping Tai Mu. No! Boom! At this moment, a spiritual spiral suddenly appeared in the sky above the sea, and an ancient and deep aura leisurely spread out. A wisp of black fog quietly enveloped the world, annihilating the sword light and standing under the tens of thousands of swords. Clang! 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 The sword light collided with the black fog brazenly. The terrifying heavenly might overlapped, dazzling and containing indescribable killing intent. However, in the end, the sword light still didn't penetrate the black fog. On the contrary, where the sword light disappeared, an ancient figure gradually revealed its true form. In the sea, a demonic aura suddenly spread across thousands of miles. Within 100 miles, all the demonic beasts prostrated themselves on the ground, trembling in fear. Only Ling Tian slightly narrowed his eyes, but there wasn't a trace of fear on his face. Instead, there was a trace of excitement. In other words, since the day he walked down the path of swords, there was only the desire to kill all his enemies left in his heart. That's right. The stronger the enemy, the stronger he would be. He had comprehended the true essence of sword Tao in the face of death. Perfecting the Tao law was far from the end of this path. What guts! To think that a puny human would dare to injure the young master of our race. The old man raised his head and looked at Ling Tian. His hand that was hidden in the black robe slightly clenched, and a trace of blood seemed to be slipping down silently. At this moment, there was also a trace of astonishment in his eyes. As a fifth-grade divine emperor, he was actually injured by a divine marquis ant? Even if it was just a trace of a sword mark, it was still a kind of humiliation to him. Elder Tai Fu? Why are you here? Forget it, hurry up and kill him. Tai Fu stood behind the old man, and the fear on his face had already dissipated. Instead, it was replaced by a trace of gloomy resentment. In recent days, the news that there was a demon in the sea that specifically hunted down the sea tribe's geniuses had caused an uproar. Therefore, all the young masters of the sea tribe, who were known by name, were secretly followed by experts to prevent any mishaps from happening. Although the Tai clan was a royal clan, it was at the bottom of the royal clan. With a fifth-grade divine emperor as a guardian, it was considered a respectable honor in the sea. Of course, no matter if it was a human or a demon, since they were on the path to immortality, they would have to go through trials and tribulations. The guardian's role was not to ward off disasters, but to break through death situations. However, although the young man in front of him had some demonic characteristics, he seemed to be a little different from the rumored true demon. It was said that the true demon who killed demons had an unparalleled demonic intent and was extremely arrogant. However, the person in front of him was too low-key. No, if you had told me earlier that you were so awesome, would I have acted cool in front of you? The human race was indeed treacherous and knew how to pretend to be a pig. Chapter 755. Despicable human, how dare you act so presumptuously in my sea? Today I will destroy your body and soul. Tai Ku shouted coldly. His demonic aura transformed into a giant palm and slammed down on Ling Tian. Instantly, the sea churned and spiritual aura surged. The originally calm sea turned into thousands of waves in the night. Then, Tai Ku turned around and looked at Tai Mu behind him. "Young master, rumor has it that an ancient realm expert will appear in the depths of the sea. The clan leader asked me to bring the purple soul divine halberd to you. He hopes that you can show the might of our clan." In Tai Ku's mind, a palm strike from a rank 5 great emperor could kill even a divine king or a divine emperor, let alone a young divine marquis. His sword intent did contain a bit of heavenly might. However, the physical body of a human was weak. If this palm strike landed, their soul would fly away and their flesh would be smashed. "Thank you, clan elder." Tai Ku smiled coldly and reached out to grab the divine halberd. His expression was cold and arrogant. However, just as the two of them turned around and were about to walk into the depths of the sea, a wisp of demonic aura suddenly rippled out from the place where the demonic aura was vast. At first, it was like a gust of wind, but in the blink of an eye, it turned into 100-meter-long black light that pierced through the clouds and enveloped Song Ming. Tai Ku and Tai Mu suddenly stopped in their tracks. Then, they turned around in shock and looked at the place where the palm strike landed. They saw that in the endless waves, there seemed to be a touch of green blooming. An extremely dense wave of vitality rippled out and spread out. Yi Sun stood behind Ling Tian, her jade-like hands gently pressing against the young man's back. Above his head, the shadow of a divine tree stood at the bottom of the sea and pierced the sky. The dense vitality made even Tai Ku feel a sense of fear from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, there were still traces of blood dripping from the corner of Ling Tian's mouth. Even his black robe was stained with blood. However, under the cover of the vitality, his injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. "The power of Tao? I underestimated you." Tai Ku snorted coldly. The mockery in his eyes disappeared, and was replaced by a touch of seriousness. With the strength of the two young men in front of him, in the entire sea, only the top few monstrous geniuses would be able to fight against them. With the two of them working together, with one attacking and the other defending, it was a perfect complement. Unfortunately, no matter how monstrous a heaven's favorite was, he was still a heaven's favorite. How could talent make up for the difference in cultivation levels? He hadn't used his full strength in the palm strike just now, and he hadn't even been serious. Villains always died from carelessness. "It's your turn. Take my sword." In Ling Tian's eyes, a devilish intent suddenly surged. Immediately after, that pair of clear and deep eyes suddenly turned completely black. Even the sword intent that surrounded him revealed a demonic nature at this moment. This kind of aura was not like the might of a cultivation technique. It was more like a kind of nature that originated from the marrow and blood. Back then, Ling Xiao had left a wisp of sky demon qi in the Ling Tian Dan Sea. The original intention was to make him believe that the real sky demon was actually Ling Tian himself. But even Ling Xiao had probably never imagined that at the peak of the Path of Swords, this young man that possessed the bearing of a sword immortal had actually perfectly fused this strand of devil insight and sword insight. Moreover, the immortal extermination sword in Ling Tian's hand was originally an evil weapon that contained a wisp of immortal's resentment. Under all these coincidences, Ling Tian seemed to have walked a path that was completely different from the past sword immortals. He was both an immortal and a devil. With one sword strike, everything withered and the world became empty. 9 heaven-destroying swords, the third sword, immortal slaying. Thousands of ripples suddenly appeared in the boundless sea. The immortal extermination sword in Ling Tian's hand suddenly released a vast amount of sky demon qi. Above his head, the ancient immortal shadow's eyes also flickered with a terrifying scarlet light. The originally elegant and otherworldly aura suddenly disappeared completely. What was left was a kind of heart-palpitating murderous aura. It was as if at this moment it was no longer an ancient immortal that occupied the 9 heavens, but a great demon that had just awakened. Boom! The demonic shadow descended, stepping through the void. The boundless sea instantly withered. Wherever the sword light passed, immortals and gods bowed, and heaven and earth would die. There was a loud demonic chant that disturbed one's mind, making one feel cold for no reason. There was only one sword left in heaven and earth. And this sword contained the infinite power to destroy the ancient times and destroy the 6 paths of reincarnation. A look of shock finally appeared on Tai Mu's face. Although he didn't know how a 17 or 18-year-old human youth could cultivate such a tragic sword move, he still didn't know. But at this moment, he had a vague feeling that this sword strike already had the power to kill an emperor. Boom! Demonic chi floated around Tai Mu, connecting heaven and earth. Above his head, a demonic shadow also appeared. It was a strange fish covered with scales all over its body. The demonic patterns on its back flickered with ancient vicissitudes, giving people a feeling that it was indestructible. Obviously, in the face of Ling Tian's sword strike, this Sea Clan God Emperor also used his most powerful technique. Roar! The demonic shadow roared at the sky, shaking the 9 heavens. The sword light finally fell from the sky, like the finger of an immortal demon, and like the beginning of the world, it slashed on the demonic shadow's head. Boom! A spiritual aura that was visible to the naked eye instantly swept across the boundless sea. The demonic radiance of the sword intent was like the destruction of the sea of stars and the collapse of the world, crushing all living creatures and reefs along the way into ashes. Even Tai Mu, who was standing behind Tai Mu, felt as if there were billions of sword radiances piercing through his body before the fear on his face disappeared. In a breath's time, he was cut into a bloody mist on the ground. Even the inherited treasure in his hand was completely shattered by this power. Only a wisp of his divine soul was left, clinging tightly to Tai Mu's back, trembling. "You're courting death!" Tai Mu's face was ferocious, especially when he saw the cracks on the demonic shadow outside his body. One could imagine the anger in his heart. He was a 5th-grade divine emperor, a royal clan elder, but he was forced by a human youth repeatedly. Even the young master of the clan had been crushed to pieces under his protection. What a great humiliation! "If I don't skin you alive today, I'm not Tai Mu!" Boundless demonic radiance bloomed in an instant. The terrifying pressure was like a giant hand that tightly gripped the entire sea. Tai Mu was like a scorching sun, with a vast amount of blood energy gushing out. Ling Tian's face turned pale, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Even the bones in his body were emitting strange cracking sounds at this moment. Tai Mu was right. The human body was indeed weak. If it weren't for Yi Sun-er, who was a great healer, constantly healing his internal injuries, Ling Tian would have died the moment the palm landed. Of course, even so, Ling Tian had luck and was protected by the heavenly way. No matter how dangerous it was, he wasn't someone who could be killed by a divine emperor of the oceanic species. "Junior brother, I can't hold on any longer." Yi Sun-er's mouth was also bleeding. At this moment, the aura on her body had already withered to the extreme. However, both of them were divine overlords, and it was already a miracle that they could hold on until now. If news of this battle spread, Ling Tian's name would be known throughout the Xingzhou. "Let's go." Yi Sun-er's eyes were burning with anxiety. Before they left, their grandfather had given them a divine talisman to save their lives. However, Ling Tian's personality was stubborn, and he cultivated the way of the sword. Therefore, he had set a rule with Yi Sun-er that he couldn't use the divine talisman unless he was in a life-and-death situation. He wanted to comprehend the way of the sword in a life-and-death situation. But now it seemed like he was in a life-and-death situation. Yes. Ling Tian gritted his teeth, and blood stained his white teeth, revealing a hint of viciousness. However, just as Yi Sun-er's face lit up with joy and she held the divine talisman in her hand, a mocking laugh came from above the sea. "Not Tai Mu?" Could it be that you want to be called Gang Dan? Chapter 756. Hearing the voice, Ling Tian and Yi Fan were pleasantly surprised. However, Tai Fan's eyes were gloomy. Before he could see the appearance of the person, he felt that time and space suddenly stagnated. A ray of black light fell from the top of his head. It seemed to have cut the world, the sea, and the yin and yang. It was like a demonic light that could destroy the world. Wherever it passed, the light was extinguished, and all living things ceased to exist. An unknown and terrifying force gradually recovered. Thousands of strange phenomena appeared in front of Tai Fan. Immortals and gods were slain, great demons lowered their wings, and all the worlds were destroyed. Boom! In the end, the black light fell and slashed the demonic shadow outside of Tai Fan. The thousands of forces were shattered. A crisp shattering sound was heard, and Tai Fan, who was a 5th-grade martial emperor, was forced to retreat pathetically. He staggered, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Although this attack was a bit of a sneak attack, it could make a 5th-grade divine emperor so pathetically. It was obvious that the person's cultivation was also at the martial emperor realm. However, just as Tai Fan raised his head and looked at the dome of the sea, his eyes narrowed fiercely. Above his head, a white-robed figure slowly appeared. Heaven and earth instantly fell silent. In the sea, there seemed to be a celestial rhythm. Ling Xiao, who was dressed in white, was as handsome as jade. His Tao will turned into endless illusions. As if a celestial god had descended, the green lotus divine beast appeared under his feet as he walked. What a young celestial! Even though Tai Fan had always looked down on the human race, when he saw this white-robed young man, he still felt frightened. Even in the entire sea, there was no one who could be compared to him. Brother, the demonic intent in Ling Tian's eyes dissipated, and even his cold face bloomed with a bright smile. Seeing this, Yi Sun frowned slightly. After hesitating for a while, she asked softly, Ling Tian, can I ask you a question? What? Ling Tian was stunned and turned to look at Yi Sun. Your brother and I are in danger at the same time. Who are you going to save? Sun, your question is boring. Your brother is invincible. Why is he in danger? There was a trace of displeasure in Ling Tian's voice, but Yi Sun sighed softly. I said if, you have the life Tao law, so you should be able to hold on for a while longer. Young man, who are you? In the sea curtain far away, Tai Fan's eyes were gloomy as he felt an inexplicable sense of unease. Although he couldn't see through the young man's cultivation, he just felt cold and wanted to shiver. How dare you injure my brother? You deserve to die. Ling Xiao snorted and descended from the sky, standing beside Ling Tian. Are you all right? Brother. I'm fine. Ling Tian let out a dazzling smile. His teeth were stained with blood and his bones were shattered. However, he did not feel any pain at all. Instead, he felt warmth and guilt. His brother had once again appeared when he was at death's door. In the past, Ling Tian thought that it was a coincidence, or that his brother was trying to humiliate him on purpose. But now, it seemed that he was clearly concerned about her. One coincidence, two coincidences? Do you think I'm a fool? It must be her brother who was secretly following her, protecting her, and encouraging her to move forward. Brother, you're just like that, burying all your love deep in your heart. I'm sorry to disappoint you again. I can't kill a 5th-grade divine emperor. I'm useless. A thick sense of guilt lingered in Ling Tian's heart. However, the stubbornness in his eyes became even more resolute and evil. Looking at the desolation in Ling Tian's eyes, Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and opened his mouth slightly. However, he didn't say a word in the end. Damn. Brother, do you really want to kill this Sea Tribe Divine Emperor? Are you getting too arrogant? Not to mention you, even I might not be able to do it now. The Sea Tribe Divine Emperor in front of him was known for his defense. If Ling Xiao hadn't attacked him with his full strength and I hadn't helped him, he might not have been able to break through his defense so easily. Of course, how could a fifth-grade divine emperor, who had no luck, be worthy of being killed by him personally? He could just put on an act to get a good impression of him. Wasn't it the son of destiny's duty to fight for his life all day long? Elder, let's retreat. Tai Mu hid behind Tai Mu, revealing his big round head. His eyes were filled with fear. He's here. He's here. He's here. Brother? He was the human who liked to eat demons that the black-clothed young man had mentioned? From the looks of it, he did indeed look a little awesome. Leave. Tai Mu frowned and shook his head slightly. Elder, I order you. Take me away now. Otherwise, I'll punish you for betraying the tribe. Tai Mu was stunned and he shouted angrily. The remaining power of Ling Tian's sword had shattered his body into pieces. Even if the clan elder's cultivation is terrifying and can crush these two human youths, who knows if the aftershock of their fight later will destroy my divine soul? You think I don't want to leave? Tai Mu gritted his teeth and looked at the tall figure in armor in the distance. Although the figure didn't emit any aura, it was still terrifying. For some reason, it made him feel terrified and hopeless. Do you think you can kill me with just a puppet? Childish. Tai Mu took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. The demonic aura around him spread out. However, as soon as he finished speaking, several figures stepped out of the void. All of them had ferocious looks on their faces. Gulp. Destroy your fleshly body. Ling Xiao waved his hand. Xiong Huan and the others immediately stepped out and pounced on Tai Mu. Young man, you're not righteous. First, you ambushed me, and now you want to gang up on me. You. Boom! Before Tai Zun's voice died away, the void in front of him suddenly crumbled. Xiong Huan smashed his fist down and almost shattered the entire sea curtain into nothingness. Childish. Ling Xiao snorted and didn't even look at Tai Mu. I'm a villain. You expect me to be righteous with you? If it weren't for plundering fate, toying with the children of destiny, or winning the favor of the women of destiny, I wouldn't even bother to swing my sword. Why do you think I have so many servants? Brother, that person seems to be related to the young master of the Xian Turtle clan. The injuries on Ling Tian's body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yi Sun took out a few pills from her Qianquan bag and swallowed them. The dim spiritual light around her gradually surged. One had to admit that the Life Dao Law was indeed very fragrant. As long as one didn't die, one's health would be full. The young master of the Xian Turtle clan? The #1 prodigy of the sea region? The corners of Ling Zhao's mouth curled up into a smile as he looked up at Tai Mu, who was hiding in the dark. Yes, master. Xiao Bo nodded slightly, his figure suddenly vanishing on the spot. At this moment, a spiritual talisman lit up in Tai Mu's hand. He shouted in panic, "Brother, save me! I was killed in your territory." However, the moment he finished speaking, the scene in front of him seemed to have frozen for a moment. Immediately after, it was as if someone had grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up in the air, bringing him in front of Ling Xiao and the others. Ling Xiao raised his hand and took the spiritual talisman from Tai Mu's hand. His eyes were full of playfulness. "Where are you?" A low voice came from the other side of the spiritual talisman. "I'm waiting for you at the end of the sea region." Ling Xiao smiled gently and crushed the spiritual talisman. He turned to look at Tai Mu. Young master, when I saw you, I felt a surge of emotions. Only someone like you can be called invincible in the world. Tai Mu forced a smile on his face. However, the moment he finished speaking, he saw a dazzling light flash in the eyes of the young man in front of him. After that, he felt his body become light and completely lost consciousness. Boom. No! Tai Mu let out a desperate roar and instantly revealed his true body. However, his cultivation was 2 realms lower than Xiong Huan. now that he was surrounded by Xing Shen and the others. Although it had only been a few seconds, his life-saving spiritual treasures had been destroyed. Seeing Ling Xiao nod, Xiong Huan smashed his fist down. It was like a meteor falling from the sky and directly smashed Tai Mu's head. A strong smell of blood spread, and the sea region within thousands of miles turned red. Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly had the moon in them. Chapter 757. There was a sudden burst of soul power between heaven and earth. Tai Mu saw a black moon floating in front of him, and the whole world fell into darkness. At the end of his sight, there seemed to be a black soul palace standing tall. There were demonic runes on it, and there were thousands of strange phenomena. It faintly revealed an indestructible, overbearing aura. Above the soul palace, there was a demonic sun shining with black light, devouring all light. It was like a demonic origin that could destroy the 9 heavens. It made one feel despair at a glance. Boom. However, Tai Mu still couldn't figure out how a young man could have such a terrifying demonic creature. Above the demonic sun, there was a sudden burst of black light. Then, as if heavens might have descended, it enveloped him. The terrifying suppressive power almost crushed his divine soul in a breath's time, and it was devoured completely. Boom! The divine soul power of a 5th-grade divine emperor instantly made Ling Xiao's soul palace rise by a few feet. However, there was still a big gap to reach the 9th-grade divine emperor realm. Brother! Ling Tian looked at Ling Xiao in shock. Although there was no aura coming from the latter, he somehow felt that his brother seemed to have become stronger again. Let's go. I'll bring you to a good place. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and walked toward the dragon transformation sea. The Xian Turtle Clan? Since the young master of the Xian Turtle Clan was the #1 genius of the sea area, and the heavenly alligator's ancestral land had appeared, it was impossible for him not to join in the fun. When the time came, he would kill them all. No matter how smelly my little brother is, only I can beat him up. Whoever beats him will die. Deep in the sea area, the 3 of them walked side by side. According to the agreement between Ling Xiao and Yizhan, the 2-day deadline was up. It was time to open the ancestral land. Young master. On the shore of the dragon transformation sea, Yizhan hid behind a reef and waved at Ling Xiao. Behind him, the flood dragon human ancestor and clan master stood quietly. Further away, several flood dragon human races' emperor gods looked solemn, and their auras were surging. Apparently, they were ready to die. Young Master Yizhan. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and looked at the group of god emperors of flood dragon human with a warm expression. With the strength of these people, if they rashly launched a sneak attack, even Ziyan would feel an extreme headache. However, it was a pity. I'm afraid none of you will return from this trip to the Sea Emperor's palace. Of course, Ling Xiao's actions were not just to give Ziyan a huge gift so that she could kill the #1 divine emissary in the future. To be honest, Ling Xiao had always been wary of this woman. If your performance is too weak, she might not even give you the chance to join hands with her. The premise of cooperation was always a win-win situation. What right did the weak have to be treated as equals? This trip of the flood dragon humans is a form of intimidation. I, Ling Xiao, can toy with all living beings in the palm of my hand. It was also a safeguard. In this way, regardless of whether Ziyan had other thoughts in her heart, she wouldn't be able to stop Yizhan, a villain who would do anything to achieve his goal. If Crocodile died in her hands, how could Ling Xiao control her? Young master, everything is ready. Now it's up to you. This trip to the ancestral land will depend on you. Yizhan bowed, but his eyes glanced at Ling Tian and Aoe. This is my younger brother. He will be going to the ancestral land with me this time. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Suddenly, a smile bloomed on his face. The key to this trip is not me, but all of you of the flood dragon human race. If you can't hold Ziyen back, what's the use of my methods? Humph. Young master, don't worry. This time, the 6 god emperors of my flood dragon human race are all out. There are also a few vassal god emperors of other races heading towards the Sea Emperor's palace. Aoe snorted coldly. He looked at Ling Xiao with a hint of wariness in his eyes. Although he also felt that this plan was meticulous and reasonable, but he felt inexplicably uneasy. However, to truly unify the sea region and become the royal race above all races, Yi Zhan had to return to the heavenly alligator's ancestral land. Therefore, whether there was a conspiracy or not, the flood dragon human race had no other choice. Besides, Ziyen was indeed very strong. She was so strong that she could suppress the entire sea region. In particular, her attainments in array formations had reached a breathtaking level. But with several god emperors attacking together, how many people in the entire sea region could stop them? Even if they couldn't kill Ziyen in the end, as long as they could delay her for a few days, waiting for their young master to enter the ancestral land, it would be a great success. With Aoe, Aosun, and the other's strength, wouldn't it be easy to leave a few scapegoats behind? Otherwise, do you think I asked those vassal god emperors of the Sea Clan to do something? At that time, they only needed to return to the dragon transformation sea and hide in the ancestral land. So what if Ziyen was a 9th grade god emperor? Young Master Yi Zhan would lead us to glory in the end. Great. Ling Xiao clapped and sighed softly. He looked at Yi Zhan and smiled. Beat. The Son of Destiny strongly approves of the villain's behavior. The courting of death has begun. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Everyone, I'll be counting on you this time. Yi Zhan bowed, but Aoe looked hesitant. Young master, do you really not need to leave 2 people to accompany you to the ancestral land? No need. Yi Zhan shook his head slightly. How could he not know everyone's concerns? Ling Xiao is a human after all. He's not one of us, so he must have a different heart. But are you blind? Don't you see young master's Tao aura, the typical light of righteousness? What evil thoughts can he have? As for other threats, as long as Ziyen didn't come, Yi Zhan didn't care about the other sea clans. In that case, we'll go. Aoe took a deep breath and finally glared at Ling Xiao before turning and flying toward the distant sea region. The 6 god emperors disappeared without a trace. The dragon transformation sea suddenly fell into a dead silence. Young master, let's go. Yi Zhan turned to look at Ling Xiao, only to see the latter nodding slightly. Young master, you can release the approximate location of your ancestral land. This, all right. Yi Zhan hesitated but didn't say anything in the end. My ancestral land is hidden in the Dead Sea region in the extreme north of the Endless Sea region. Dead Sea. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. From the first day he entered the sea region, he knew that there was a forbidden area in the depths of the Endless Sea called the Dead Sea. There was a great demon entrenched in it, and whoever entered would die. But now it seemed that this news was most likely deliberately spread by Ziyen or the Heavenly Alligator clan. The so-called Great Demon was just an excuse to cover up the hidden secret realm within. I got it. Ling Tian, young Master Yi Zhan, you go to the Dead Sea first. I'll arrange for my men to spread the news, and I'll be there soon. Ling Xiao turned his head, glanced at the depths of the Dragon Transformation Sea, and said in a deep voice, All right. Ling Tian nodded gently and turned to look at Yi Zhan. Young Master Yi Zhan, please? Young Master, you have to hurry up. Aoe and the others can't hold on for long. Yi Zhan's expression turned cold. Seeing Ling Xiao's indifferent expression, he didn't dare to say more and walked away with Ling Tian. Come out. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently with a touch of gentleness at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 758. Master. The originally tranquil sea suddenly rippled with light. Many figures descended from the sky and stood quietly in front of Ling Xiao. Duan Tianyao, who was standing at the front, had a serious expression. His rank 7th arch aura rippled quietly. Although Ling Xiao had killed a few elders of Sky Border City and almost all the disciples, there were still a few emperor gods who had survived. The Dragon Transformation Sea was the land of the flood dragon humans. Duan Tianya did not know why his master had asked him to lead everyone here. However, he instinctively felt a little uneasy. Tianya City could not afford to offend the Sea region's royal family. However, he did not dare to disobey his master's orders. Fold Shadow, spread the news that a mystic realm has appeared in the Dead Sea domain. Ling Xiao held a bright golden talisman in his hand and said calmly. Although the Dead Sea was only a corner of the sea domain, it was still vast and boundless. First, he would attract all the sea race prodigies. When the heavenly crocodile's ancestral land appeared, he would make some appropriate movements. Then, they would be able to find him. Of course, he could not make it seem too deliberate. As for these Sky Border City experts, the Flood Dragon humans had countless experts. Even if all the god thearchs were to come out, AoE and the others would definitely leave a few experts behind to protect them. Moreover, the Dragon Transformation Sea was tens of thousands of miles wide. It would not be a matter of a day or two. Now that Ling Xiao had to go to the Heavenly Crocodile's ancestral land, he did not have time to stay here. Xiong Huan and the others would definitely not leave Ling Xiao's side. After all, this sea domain was full of dangers. Without Xiong Huan around, they would not be at ease. Let's go. Ling Xiao took the lead and walked toward the depths of the Dragon Transformation Sea. Ling Xiao had seen the Flood Dragon humans' protective array that day. Although it was magical, even Ziyan was afraid of it. However, to Ling Xiao, who had the boundary-breaking talisman, it was not worth mentioning. Of course, Ao Sun and the others dared to leave at ease because they were confident in this ancient array. But no one would have thought that there was a cheat in this world. When everyone appeared outside the Crystal Palace, they saw a golden light array descending from the sky. It was like an ancient bell, enveloping the entire ancient palace. Formation markings were formed on it while numerous phenomena rose and fell in succession, causing it to be vast and miraculous. Sky Border City Lord? Why have you come to my Dragon Transformation Sea? Below the golden array, some of the Flood Dragon clan's experts narrowed their eyes when they saw several figures suddenly descend. Duan Tianya's name was known throughout the entire sea region. In particular, the heavenly flame in his hand was even more famous, and it was feared by the oceanic species. However, a mere human emperor god, even if he had some tricks up his sleeves, how would he dare to provoke the Flood Dragon human tribe? But wasn't his appearance a little too coincidental? Why did this Duan Tianya lead a group of people to invade right after our clan's experts left? Could it be that there's a spy in my Flood Dragon humanoid race? I'm here to borrow your heads. Duan Tianya sneered, but there was some confusion between his brows. Running to the Flood Dragon human tribe to act tough would definitely end up in a miserable state. However, if he didn't act tough, his master would be unhappy. F***CK. What can I do? I'm just a soul slave. Why would I be so scared? How dare you? Duan Tianya, do you really think you're someone important? Do you know the consequences of provoking the Flood Dragon human tribe? Several Flood Dragon human tribe members walked out of the Crystal Palace one after another. However, most of them were god kings, and there wasn't even a single god emperor among them. Oh? What consequences? A gentle laugh suddenly came from behind them. Then, a tall figure in white walked out slowly and stood in front of Duan Tianya. After seeing who it was, the leading Flood Dragon human tribe's expert, who was a 9th-grade god king, was stunned. Then, he shouted angrily, "It's you! I knew it! You're up to no good, human!" All the demons had seen Ling Xiao cause trouble in the Flood Dragon human tribe. This God King also knew about the great plan of the serpent human race. So, this human youth actually had such an idea. Luring the tiger away from the mountain? Then, eating the tiger's mountain? F***ck. However, I'm afraid you've made a mistake. With the tribe defense ancient formation set up by our flood dragon human tribe's ancestor, even if the Sea Emperor himself came, what could he do? Master, this ancient formation. Duan Tianyao was also confused. Although Ling Xiao had a few powerful subordinates, this terrifying formation was terrifying. However, the formation in front of him was extremely terrifying. It was 100 times more mysterious than the one in Sky Border City. Not to mention that there were many experts in the Flood Dragon human tribe, this formation alone wasn't something that anyone could break. Master? Duan Tianya, you're a famous expert in the Endless Sea. How could you recognize a young man as your master? Wait until the experts of my tribe return. I'll kill everyone in Sky Border City. The Flood Dragon human tribe's God King snorted coldly, but there wasn't any panic on his face. He was confident in the tribe defense ancient formation. As long as the ancestor and the others returned from the Sea Emperor Palace, none of these people would be spared. Your ancestor won't be coming back. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. Then, under the dumbfounded gazes of countless experts of the Flood Dragon human tribe, he suddenly took out 4 silver pearls from his universe ring and walked toward the ancient formation. Arrogant! Ling Xiao, no matter what you're planning, just because of what you said, my Flood Dragon human tribe will destroy your divine soul and prevent you from entering the reincarnation cycle. But, just as the Flood Dragon human tribe's God King finished speaking, Ling Xiao's palm suddenly pierced through the ancient formation and casually through the silver pearls, over. What? What did I just see? He actually broke our tribe defense ancient formation? The Flood Dragon human tribe's God King looked at each other and rubbed their eyes. At this moment, the silver pearls suddenly bloomed with bright flames. Then, a wisp of dark green smoke spread out. Before anyone could react, they turned into a pool of blood on the ground. Their divine souls were destroyed. Gulp! Oh no! This mist is poisonous. Let me out. I want to go out. It's so scary. Help! The formation that was supposed to protect everyone had now become a shackle that restrained them. Especially the people outside the palace. They didn't even have time to escape before they died mysteriously. Seeing this, Duan Tianya swallowed his saliva. What a familiar scene. Back then, his Sky Border City was destroyed just like this. In the Flood Dragon human tribe's territory, screams could be heard incessantly. When the poisonous mist dissipated, Ling Xiao tore open a corner of the formation and led Duan Tianya and the others into it. Kill. Ling Xiao waved his hand. The God Emperors immediately emitted a bright spiritual light and charged toward the Crystal Palace. The Flood Dragon human tribe's strongest was only a 9th-grade God King. Facing a group of human God Emperors, they naturally couldn't resist at all. In just a short moment, there wasn't a single trace of life in the entire palace. Ling Xiao casually captured a divine marquis Flood Dragon human. Soul light flickered in his eyes. Suddenly, a playful smile appeared on his face. From the beginning, Ling Xiao had never heard of the birth of a prodigy in the Flood Dragon human tribe. Given the ancient tribe's foundation, this obviously didn't make sense. From the divine Marquis Flood Dragon human tribe's soul consciousness, Ling Xiao knew that 60 years ago, a peerless demon was born in the Flood Dragon human tribe. His bloodline actually showed signs of atavism. He was immediately appointed as the young master by AOE. However, about 10 years ago, this young master of the Flood Dragon human tribe suddenly disappeared. It was said that he went to the North Border Demon tribe to train. Chapter 759. The Flood Dragon human's ancestral awakening was definitely the dragon race's bloodline. Even a wisp of it was terrifying in the holy continent. Although Ling Xiao didn't know whether this person was the heavenly mandate, it was clear that there was a story behind this young master of the flood dragon human race. Go and kill all the demons in the dragon transformation sea. While you're at it, collect all their treasures. Ling Xiao waved his hand and walked toward the depths of the Crystal Palace. Behind him, Duan Tianya and the others bowed and left. Ziyan probably wouldn't die. Since all the experts of the flood dragon human race had died in the Ocean Emperor Palace, Ziyan would definitely come to the Dragon Transformation Sea and collect the treasures of the flood dragon human race. However, when she arrived, she would find an empty Dragon Transformation Sea. Was it a surprise? Was it unexpected? Following the divine overlord of the flood dragon human race, Ling Xiao came to the deepest part of the Crystal Palace and saw an ancient stone hall. Before he even entered, Ling Xiao could already feel the turbulent spiritual energy fluctuations inside. It was clear that this was where the flood dragon human race hid their treasures. With 1,000 years of inheritance, they were the royal race of the sea region. Their treasures were naturally terrifying. And now, this ancient sea clan was inexplicably destroyed by Ling Xiao. In fact, he didn't lose a single subordinate, nor did he spend much effort. As for whether Duan Tianyao and the others would die, Duan Tianyao wouldn't die for the time being, but the remaining God Emperors would die because they didn't have soul seals in their soul seas. Boom! Ling Xiao struck out with his palm, and a lightning sun instantly condensed and shattered the stone hall's ancient door. An extremely dense spiritual pressure suddenly descended. Even with Ling Xiao's temperament, he felt an indescribable shock at this moment. At this moment, there were countless spirit treasures and spirit materials densely arranged within the 300-meter-tall stone hall. Although it was messy, the number of spirit treasures was enough to make one click their tongue. Boom! As Ling Xiao waved his hand, a wisp of spirit chi quietly drifted away. The treasures that originally covered the entire stone hall instantly disappeared without a trace. Within the realm, Ling Xiao stood on top of the Sky Palace. In front of him, Phoenix Rouge, Han Qingqiu, and the others were staring at the countless treasures on the ground. Young master, did you empty the Sea Emperor Palace? The Phoenix Rouge swallowed its saliva and immediately pounced on the countless spirit treasures and rolled over. What did it mean to be rich enough to rival the imperial court? With the number of spirit treasures and pills in Ling Xiao's possession, it would not take him much effort to create a super force that stood above the Xingzhou continent in 10 years. Of course, the number of experts was not enough to overthrow the saint. After all, the shackles of heaven and earth could not be broken. In the current Xingzhou, no one could step into the Yuan Venerate. The Divine Master was a supreme existence. You can choose for yourselves. If you like them, you can keep them. As for the rest, Ru Go, you can distribute them to those who need them. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently and turned to leave. Young master! Phoenix Rouge suddenly stood up and called out to Ling Xiao. What's wrong? Since you're back, take a look at these clothes and see if they fit. Phoenix Rouge smiled mysteriously and clapped its jade-like hands. Below the Sky Palace, 2 figures suddenly flew over. Both of them had sinister ghost masks on their faces. One of them had a silver mask, while the other had a bronze mask. The clothes they were wearing were slightly different. Although they were both wearing black robes, one of them had blood-colored auspicious clouds embroidered on the bottom, while the other had a medicinal cauldron totem on his chest. Young master, our faction will be named after the Supreme Demon Palace. You will be the Demon Master and compete with the Divine Master. The Divine Emperor Elders can wear blood-colored cloud robes, while the disciples of the Medicine Hall and the other 2 halls will wear plain robes embroidered with the totem of each hall. Phoenix Rouge walked over to the 2 of them and took off the mask on one of their faces. Young master, please take a look. There is an explosive bead at the corner of this mask. It contains a trace of sky poison. Huh! Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, But he quickly understood what Phoenix Rouge was thinking. The Supreme Demon Palace was the enemy of the saint. All the experts of the Demon Palace were taboo in the Xingzhou. Once they fell into the hands of the saint, their souls would be searched and they would suffer a fate worse than death. And this sky poison pill was the key to proving their loyalty and freeing them from their predicament. Not bad, my song. You are becoming more and more like a villain's woman. Moreover, your blood-colored cloud-black robes really suit my identity of fighting against 7 people. Master, I plan to announce the rules of the Demon Palace in the next few days and set up a battle ranking. The ranking will be based on strength, and the spirit treasures and pills will be distributed according to the ranking. Currently, there are 3 halls in the Demon Palace: the Medicine Hall, the Battle Hall, and the Dark Hall. Han Zhan, Ning and I will temporarily take the position of Hall Master respectively. Phoenix Rouge waved its hand and ordered the 2 people in front of it to leave. Xing Shun and Hua Heng will be the guest elders of the Demon Palace. Xiong Huan will be the Demon General of the Demon Palace. Ling Xiao nodded and looked at Phoenix Rouge with admiration. With her around, Ling Xiao could finally focus on conquering the world. As expected, behind a successful man, there would always be many outstanding women. Why did you choose Han Zhan, Ning and the others as hall masters? Ling Xiao looked at Phoenix Rouge meaningfully. In fact, he had a more suitable candidate for the Dark Hall Master. Bai Ling. As the successor of the Blood Soul Temple, Bai Ling was undoubtedly more skilled in assassination. As for Phoenix Rouge, she was more suitable to stand at the top and take charge of the overall situation. This is just a temporary decision. I have not made it public yet. If you feel that it is not suitable, you can change it. Phoenix Rouge was suddenly taken aback, and a trace of panic flashed in its eyes. In particular, the deep meaning in Ling Xiao's eyes made her feel an inexplicable fear. Although Ling Xiao said that he would leave the matters of the realm to her to manage, he did not say that she could make all the decisions. Suddenly, Phoenix Rouge felt that she had overstepped her boundaries. Tell me your reason. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, without the slightest hint of joy or anger on his face. The system had determined that the Lady of Destiny had already submitted, so Ling Xiao was not worried that she would have any selfish motives. However, Phoenix Rouge was a transmigrator model and was full of schemes. Although her vision was higher than many protagonists, what Ling Xiao wanted to do now was to step into the 9 heavens again and fight against the immortals. His opponent had never been the Xingzhou Divine Master or even the Master of the Azure Sky World, but the ancient gods who occupied the 9 heavens. Therefore, he could not afford to make any mistakes, not even the slightest bit of carelessness. He admired Feng Rugu very much. He admired her temperament, cautiousness, and strange thoughts. However, admiration did not mean connivance. On the contrary, it was precisely because Phoenix Rouge was different and could be of great use that Ling Xiao wanted to teach her some rules. Han Zhan and Ning Er's talents are obvious. They will definitely become emperors in less than 5 years. Moreover, giving them some pressure appropriately can make them grow faster. Feng Rouge took a deep breath, and her expression was unprecedentedly solemn. That's right. The position of Dark Hall Master will be empty for now. You will be in charge of the entire realm for the time being. In the end, Ling Xiao nodded with a smile, turned around, and was about to leave. Now, it seemed that the forces in his hands could be said to be showing the first signs of demonic power. The Supreme Demon Palace? Actually, I still think that the Sky Demon is more domineering. However, the words, Sky Demon, were taboo in the 9 heavens, so Ling Xiao did not dare to be so ostentatious. Yes, young master. Phoenix Rouge's eyes flashed with surprise. Her originally nervous expression immediately relaxed, and she even felt grateful. Does young master approve of me? However, at this moment, she also understood that no matter what decision she made in the future, she had to report it to young master first. I, Ling Xiao, am not bragging. My ability to control people is just as outstanding as my ability to control women. Chapter 760. You can distribute the elixirs and treasures that I gave you. I want to see them all reach the divine king realm in 3 months. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the distant sky. Black robe with blood clouds and a silver-copper ghost mask. Soon, his disguise would become the nightmare of all the experts in this world. The more mysterious something was, the easier it was to be feared. One day, when the experts of the Devil Palace took off the ghost mask, this world would be ruled by the Devil Palace. Yes, young master. Phoenix Rouge nodded slightly. Seeing Ling Xiao's figure disappear, she heaved a sigh of relief. Only now did she realize that she still couldn't see through this young man. Even though the two of them had gone through life and death, separated, reunited, and fought against thousands of enemies, she still couldn't see through him. She still couldn't see through him, and had a feeling that she was completely under his control. Even a glance from him was enough to make Feng Rouge feel fear and panic. She wanted to please him and make him satisfied and happy. However, she had never seen her young master's emotions fluctuate too much. On his face, there was always only a gentle and indifferent expression, incomparably handsome. No matter if it was the desperate situation of death or the joy of bearing the sky. Even when the world was his enemy, he smiled back. With a beauty in his arms, it was just a storm. Young master, what kind of person are you? Suddenly, a gust of wind blew in the endless sea. Countless young masters of the royal family and sea race geniuses walked out of their clans and headed towards the deepest part of the sea. It was rumored that there was a great demon hidden at the end of the sea. Even the Sea Emperor Ziyan wouldn't easily step into this place. The Death Sea was a forbidden area for the sea race expert. However, in recent days, there was a rumor that an ancient mystic realm would appear in the Death Sea, and there would be supreme treasures in the mystic realm. Facing this temptation, almost all the sea race geniuses couldn't resist. The path of cultivation was about accumulating fortune and accumulating one's foundation. The greater the danger, the more heaven-defying the fortune. In just a day's time, the originally quiet Dead Sea had suddenly become lively. In the depths of the Death Sea, Ling Xiao, Yi Zhan, and Ling Tian stood in front of a black ancient tablet with their hands behind their back. The ancient tablet was over 10 meters tall, and there were some ancient and obscure diagrams carved on it. It was filled with a sorrowful aura. However, at this moment, there was still a strand of golden light circulating on the ancient steel, giving birth to countless abnormal signs. This should be the method that Ziyan had set up here. Young master, this is the entrance to the heavenly alligator's ancestral land. Yi Zhan's eyes flickered with excitement. 300 years. He hadn't returned to the ancestral land for 300 years. Now, the entrance to the ancestral grounds was right before his eyes, but the strand of energy of the formation that enveloped it was like a natural chasm that completely obstructed his footsteps. There is indeed a formation. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. He extended his hand and touched the edge of the ancient monument. Feeling the terrifying lightning energy flowing on it, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Calculating the time, the Flood Dragon humanoid race's experts should be close to the Ocean Emperor Palace. What he needed to do was to wait for all the geniuses of the various clans in the sea area to arrive. Only then would his painstaking plan not go to waste. You expect me to go from house to look for chives? There was no such thing. It was too slow. Find a secret realm, lure them all here, and then have a good meal. Isn't it delicious? When I come out of the heavenly alligator's ancestral land, it's time to talk to the first divine envoy about life and send him to the Western Paradise. Since you want a good fortune, I will give you a great fortune that will allow you to ascend to the Western Paradise. Young master, how is it? Can you break it? Yi Zhan looked solemn. Beside him, Ling Tian's eyes flickered with coldness. Are you looking down on my brother? Ijan frowned slightly, but when he saw the sword intent that suddenly surrounded Ling Tian's body, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. F***ck. This young man's cultivation is at most in the divine overlord realm. But why do I feel that I can't defeat him? No, of course I believe in you, young master. Ijan shook his head. Ling Xiao never looked at him. Suddenly, lightning rushed into the sky outside his body, illuminating the area within 100 miles as bright as day. Boom! He struck out his palm, and all the lightning in the sky gathered in his palm, colliding with the ancient tablet's array intent with a loud bang, emitting a harsh buzzing sound. With such momentum, as long as one was not blind, one would be able to see it. Everyone from the Sea Clan, this is all I can help you with. So, as long as you wait quietly for half a day, all the prodigies in the Dead Sea will rush over. Protect me. It's a little tricky. Ling Zhao's tone was inexplicably solemn. Ijan finally stopped hiding his strength. His eyes were filled with battle intent, and a divine king's aura pressed down on him. He stood behind Ling Xiao like a loyal guard. Young master, just focus on breaking the array. If anyone dares to disturb you, I will crush them into pieces. Look. What is that? The ancient sight has appeared. Let's go. In the Dead Sea, countless prodigies of the Sea Clan raised their heads in horror, looking at the lightning in the depths of the sea. Their eyes flickered with excitement. In particular, this place was dark all year round, without a trace of light. The lightning was like a bright light that led them to paradise. It stood in the sky and illuminated their path of death. After all, hunting required outstanding prey in order to display one's true skills. We don't pretend to be pretentious. We just hunt down those who like to show off and maintain the stability of this world. Whoosh, whoosh. The sound of the sea breaking rang out, an endless demonic aura swept across the world. At this moment, the wind and clouds surged in the endless sea, and hundreds of feet of waves surged. At the same time, in front of the Ocean Emperor Palace, Aoe and Ao Sun stood with their hands behind their back. Behind them, a group of Flood Dragon Clan God Emperors also looked solemn. This trip was related to whether the Flood Dragon Clan could usher in true glory. After all, the Heavenly Crocodile Clan had declined for thousands of years. But no matter how much they declined, the ancestors of this clan were inextricably linked to the ancient gods. Just this identity alone was a supreme existence to any Xingzhou demon clan. Now that Ijan had come out and suffered all kinds of hardships, Ao Sun did not look down on him at all. Instead, he was more convinced that Ijan might be the true destiny of this era. The general trend of the world had to be divided after a long time. Although the Saint sect was in charge of the world now, it was stable. But for the Demon Clan and the Sea Clan, behind this stability was endless humiliation. Ijan's appearance was like a bright light that reignited their hope. His elixir sea was dug out, and his immortal source was snatched. Not only did Ijan not die, but he also awakened his primordial bloodline. What kind of providence was this? What kind of creation was this? A saint of the human clan once said that when the heavens were about to bestow a great responsibility on a person, it would first torment his will, tire his muscles and bones, and starve his body and skin. It seemed that young Master Ijan was about to ascend to the heavens. Ancestor. Aoe turned his head and looked at Ao Sun beside him. Although both of their cultivation levels were at the 8th stage of the Divine Emperor realm, the ancestor had extraordinary experience and had experienced a lot. The major matters of the clan were all decided by him alone. Or rather, Aoye's heart was still filled with a strong sense of uneasiness. He had always had a feeling that the fate of the Flood Dragon Clan would be completely changed because of this trip. The higher one's cultivation level, the deeper one's understanding of the heavenly Tao. That was why some supreme experts in ancient times chose to live in seclusion all year round despite having heaven-defying cultivation levels. The destiny of the heavens was just to clear away the evil. But if there were no more evil, wasn't the so-called destiny of the heavens the opposite of the heavenly Tao? In the unseen world, reincarnation never stopped. But throughout history, how many people were immortal and indestructible? Let's go. Since we've chosen this path, there's no way out. Any more hesitation will only restrain us. Ao Sun sighed softly and took a step forward, heading towards the Sea Emperor Palace first. Chapter 761. Suddenly, a demonic might descended from outside the Sea Emperor's palace. It was as if the 9 heavens and the sea of stars were crashing down on the mortal world. Instantly, a corner of the majestic ancient palace was crushed. As for Ao Sun and the others, they descended from the sky and stood in the ancient palace. However, the moment the members of the Flood Dragon tribe landed, their eyes flickered with surprise. Was it so easy? How did they get in so quickly? It was rumored that there were not many experts in the Sea Emperor's palace, but it was heavily guarded. Although Ziyen was the Sea Emperor, in the end, she was only one person. She did not have any backing. If it wasn't for her astonishing strength, she would not have been able to sit on the Sea Emperor's throne. However, this Ziyen possessed astonishing means. She could use the Heaven Transformation formation to kill all her enemies. Thus, the Sea Emperor's palace could be said to be a tiger's den in the eyes of the Sea Region's clans. However, how did they get in? There was not even a trace of the power of a spirit formation circulating around them. All of a sudden, everyone felt that there was a conspiracy going on. You all actually dared to come. Just as Ao Sun and the others were filled with fear, a golden light suddenly flowed out from the corner of the ancient palace. Following that, an incomparably terrifying power of a spirit formation enveloped the entire palace. At this moment, a graceful figure appeared in the center of the palace. She was sitting on a golden chair in the middle of the palace. On that seductive and beautiful face, there was a faint trace of astonishment and playfulness. Ziyen? Ao Sun and the others narrowed their eyes. They were already panicking. At this moment, he seemed to have sensed that he had completely lost connection with the talisman in his hand. In fact, even the spiritual energy in his body was suppressed to a very weak state. If even he, a rank 8 martial emperor, was in such a state, one could imagine how weak the remaining Flood Dragon's god emperors would be. Ancestor Ao Sun, you've led a group of people here to forcibly barge into my Sea Emperor's palace. May I know why you've come? The smile on Ziyan's face was bright and enchanting. However, only those who truly understood her knew that what was hidden beneath this enchanting smile was true killing intent. The Sea Emperor Ziyan liked to kill people with a smile. This was the common knowledge of the sea race. We have no intention of offending you. We've only come here to pay our sea race's sovereign a visit. Ziyen, what are you doing here? Ao Sun fiercely clenched his teeth and forced a smile. Oh? Visit me? Ziyen stood up and took a step forward. A torrential aura instantly pressed down. Other than Ao Sun and Aoe, the 2 8th grade god emperors, the remaining god emperors from the Flood Dragon clan collapsed on the ground. Their eyes were filled with despair and shock. Ancestor, why did you destroy a corner of my Ocean Emperor palace? The smile on Ziyan's face grew even wider. With a light wave of her hand, strands of formation energy circulated around her body, forming countless phenomena. Originally, she didn't believe Ling Zhao's words at all. She also didn't believe that the Flood Dragon tribe would have the guts to act so presumptuously in her sea god's palace. But as a villain, especially now that Izhan had reappeared in the sea, Ziyen had to be cautious. Although it was just a few god emperors of the Flood Dragon human race, she did not care about them at all. However, if she could get rid of them effortlessly, why should she go through so much trouble? This formation was called the Immortal Trapping Formation, and it was one of her strongest techniques. Anyone who entered the formation, as long as their cultivation base was lower than hers, would have their spiritual power sealed. Ao Sun was very strong, but in this formation, she was the absolute ruler who determined the life and death of all living beings. Zi Huang, this is a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Ao Sun smiled embarrassedly. There was nothing but bitterness in his eyes. Especially when he saw Zi Yan's calm expression, he had a faint feeling that she seemed to know that they were coming. A misunderstanding? But once a demon makes a mistake, it has to bear the consequences. Zi Yan sneered and suddenly stretched out her hand. An invisible divine power seemed to descend from the sky, and it actually crushed those god emperors into minced meat. A thick smell of blood spread out. Ao Sun and Ao Yi's faces had already turned completely gloomy. If you hide in the dragon transformation sea, I really won't be able to get rid of you completely for the time being. Ao Sun, do you really think you can get everything you want by protecting Yijan? Zi Yan shook her head. She walked lightly, and there seemed to be a demon shadow behind her, revealing an everlasting and domineering aura. Speak. What method did that human youth use to deceive you to come here? What? At that moment, Ao Sun and Ao Yi were stunned. An extremely cold feeling suddenly emerged in their hearts. We were deceived? Damn it! That human youth? Ling Xiao. It turned out that he was in cahoots with Zi Yan. Young Lord Yijan, you are going to die. You are indeed in cahoots. Ao Sun's expression was desolate as he sighed softly. Sigh. Zi Huang, I have to remind you that what that young man is after is not our mere flood dragon human tribe. Be careful that you will also be harmed by him if you scheme against him. After all, Ao Sun and Ao Yi had no chance of surviving today. As such, if they could sow discord between the two of them before they died, perhaps young Lord Yijan and the tribe would still have a chance to survive. Ancestor, you don't have to worry about this. Although you have avoided the informants I sent, let me guess. Yijan and the others should be heading for the heavenly crocodile ancestral land, right? Zi Yan smiled playfully, and lightning suddenly blossomed in her eyes. The formation she left at the end of the Dead Sea was not simple. Even if an 8th-grade divine emperor rashly touched it, he would definitely be trapped in it and even die. Ling Xiao had many tricks up his sleeves and his scheming was top-notch. However, how could an 18 or 19-year-old youth enter the divine emperor realm even if his talent was heaven-defying? They might be able to break the first formation. In other words, Zi Yan had already tampered with it. As long as someone was proficient in the formation Dao or had some understanding of the power of lightning, they would eventually be able to find the flaw. With Zi Yan's cultivation, although she had only seen Ling Xiao once, she could feel a surge of lightning intent from him that was of the same origin as hers. However, they would never imagine that there was a second formation she had set up at the entrance of the ancient tablet. This was a true killing formation. As long as Ling Xiao and the others entered the stone tablet, there would be no way out and they would definitely die. At that time, she would be able to get rid of Yijan, this threat, without any effort. At the same time, it would not be considered as breaking the agreement with Ling Xiao to kill him at the end of the sea. Killing two birds with one stone, why not? In terms of scheming, Ling Xiao, you are still the younger brother after all. There was a trap within a trap. It was absolutely foolproof. You, to be honest, at this moment, Ao Sun's heart was already filled with regret. Moreover, from what she said, it seemed that she already knew everyone's whereabouts like the back of her hand. However, even with Ao Sun's temperament, he would never imagine that Zi Yan was not only scheming against Yijan, but also against Ling Xiao. This young man always made Zi Yan feel inexplicably uneasy. In this way, killing him would eliminate all the unknown hidden dangers. No matter what he was scheming, he would not be able to avoid the heavenly alligator ancestral land. Even if he killed Yijan at the entrance of the ancestral land, he would not be able to resist the temptation of the fortune inside. Humans all die from greed. You think you are on the second level and I am on the first? You don't know that from the moment I want to kill you, you are already a dead man. Old ancestor, let's go. Perhaps we can still catch up with your clan. In Ziyan's eyes, the lightning intent turned into a mystery. There was a faint shadow of lightning that seemed to have broken through the ages. It covered the sky and the sun as it charged towards Ao Sun and Ao Sun. Boom! Chapter 762. Boom! Boom! Tens of thousands of runes suddenly appeared in the Sea Emperor Palace, intertwining and covering the sky. Following that, the sea surged, and layers of Taoist rhymes swept out in all directions. As for Ziyan, she stood with her hands behind her back. Her gaze was calm, and even the enchanting look in her eyes had completely disappeared. The figures of Ao Sun and the others had vanished a long time ago, and only pieces of flesh and blood remained on the ground. Master! What happened? At the end of the ancient palace, a graceful figure suddenly appeared. Her face was filled with astonishment. Nothing. Why did you come out? How's your practice of the cultivation method I passed on to you? Ziyan turned her head, and her expression froze for a moment before a smile appeared on her face. You must work hard. That heaven-reaching good fortune is about to appear. In the future, the sea region will be counting on you. Master, aren't you already standing at the peak of the sea region? Tens of thousands of races have submitted, and the sea region is peaceful. Wanted to say something, but hesitated. Since Ziyan had taken a fancy to her, she had always felt that her master's goal was not simple. Before the Golden Scale clan was destroyed, did not know her origins. But now, she felt that there was a conspiracy shrouding her. Especially the cultivation technique that her master taught her. It was a kind of evil technique that could forcefully raise her cultivation and activate her bloodline. Although did not suspect that Ziyan would harm her, she was inexplicably nervous. Master wants me to fight for that fortune, but why did she teach me such an evil technique? What is she trying to do? I'm very confused. It would be great if young Master Ling Xiao was here. He would definitely give me a lot of pertinent advice, right? You have to know that the current tranquility of the sea region is just an illusion. They're just intimidated by my cultivation. Once I'm old or injured, the Ocean Emperor Palace will face destruction. Ziyan sighed, and there was a rare look of vicissitudes in her eyes. In this world, no one is willing to be under someone forever. Betrayal is only a matter of an instant. Master, you've also seen it. Today, the 9 Thearchs of the Sea Race, who are the vassal races of the Flood Dragon clan, have come together. If I hadn't made preparations in advance, I'm afraid that I would have met with a great calamity. Do you really think that I care about the position of the Sea Monarch? What I care about is the peace of the sea area from beginning to end. Master, I know. You've always thought that I've been too strict with you, but you must know that the blood flowing in your veins is the supreme bloodline of my monster race. This point alone has already determined that you won't live a peaceful life like an ordinary sea race girl. Originally, Ziyan had only come to the sea region to conquer the various races because she wanted to borrow the sea region's power to accomplish what she wanted. After all, she did not have much time left. With that person's means, he would step into the venerable realm sooner or later, and it would be difficult for her to take revenge. Therefore, this might be her only chance. Until more than 10 years ago, when she accidentally met she was instantly shocked by the bloodline flowing in the girl's body. Ziyan really did not expect that there would be such a pure true dragon bloodline in the barren land of the Xingzhou continent. In these 10 years, Ziyan had flipped through ancient books and searched for great monsters, but only found out that there was only one true dragon in the history of the Xingzhou continent. Thinking of that fortune, Ziyen suddenly had many guesses in her heart. No matter how many god emperors there were, they might not be a match for a venerable realm expert. But if she could also step into that realm, perhaps everything would be easily solved. Shi-Er was the most important part of her plan. Even killing Ling Xiao was only because she was worried that the former would disrupt her plan and do something bad to Shi-Er. After 300 years of planning, Ziyen would never allow anyone to ruin her grand plan. Master, Shi-Er only wants to stay by your side. Shi-Er's beautiful eyes flickered with a trace of grievance. In the vast Sea Emperor Palace, she had always been the loneliest one. She was like a caged canary. Although she enjoyed the most noble status in the sea region, wasn't it also a kind of imprisonment and restraint? You are still young and do not understand the cruelty of the world. I unified the sea region in order to end the 1,000 years of conquest of the sea region. But in the end, I lost an identity and a foundation. Therefore, there are countless people in the sea region who wish for my death. But Shi-Er, you are different. Your bloodline is supreme. As long as you can obtain that fortune and completely awaken it, all the monsters in the Xingzhou continent will respect you. Ziyen stretched out her hand and gently stroked Shi-Er's cheek. The gentleness in her eyes was as if she was looking at a peerless treasure. Although you do not understand me now, and I have never expected anyone to understand me, one day you will understand how great the things I am doing are. I understand, Master. Shi-Er will work hard in her cultivation and strive to awaken her bloodline as soon as possible to help you obtain that fortune. Shi-Er clenched her teeth. In particular, the loving expression on Ziyan's face made her feel an indescribable sense of guilt. Perhaps she was too childish. Under her master's cold and cruel appearance, there was always a kind heart that cared for the common people. In the end, Shi-Er turned around and left, leaving Ziyen standing alone in the ruins of the Sea Emperor Palace. But at this moment, the smile on her face had already disappeared. Only endless coldness was left. In the depths of the Death Sea, in front of the ancient tablet, Ling Xiao frowned slightly. His body was surging with lightning intent. At this moment, he seemed to have discovered that the formation in front of him was not as terrifying as he had imagined. In fact, without the help of the formation-breaking talisman, he had discovered a few flaws. Was this reasonable? Given Ziyan's ability, how could she set up such a low-level formation? Of course, it was not that this formation was useless. On the contrary, if Ling Xiao had not seen the ancient formation that Ziyen had used to trap Eni, he would not have doubted it. After all, even if a monster had some talent, it was impossible for them to cultivate to the profound realm like a human formation master. The seal in front of him was indeed terrifying. Even an ordinary 6th or 7th stage divine emperor might not be able to break it easily. If not for Ling Xiao's complete lightning Dao, it would be difficult for him to discover the flaws. However, Ling Xiao felt that something was wrong with this formation. Crack! Suddenly, a crisp cracking sound was heard in front of Ling Xiao. Behind him, a smile finally appeared on Yizhan's face. Young master, you're awesome. This lightning formation was a restriction for the monster race. Especially in the sea region, even God Emperor experts could only avoid the lightning's prowess temporarily. But Lord Ling Xiao could easily break this formation with his divine overlord realm cultivation. What else was there to say? Young master, you're awesome. At this moment, under the guidance of the lightning that Ling Xiao deliberately released, this sea was already surrounded by sea region geniuses. However, due to Yizhan's ferocious power, no one dared to take the initiative to step forward. They all stood in the distance, staring at the changes in the formation above the ancient formation. It's broken! Look, it's broken! When the lightning dissipated, many Sea Clan geniuses' eyes were instantly filled with greed and excitement. Chapter 763. All of a sudden, the Dead Sea began to ripple. The lightning around Ling Xiao dissipated. He stood up and let out a long sigh of relief, looking extremely exhausted. Even his face was inexplicably pale. Seeing this, Yi-Zhan's eyes flashed with gratitude. He took out several elixirs from his arms and handed them to Ling Xiao. "Thank you for your hard work, young master. It's all for the people of the sea area." Ling Xiao shook his head, his expression gentle and calm. This scene, in Yi-Zhan's eyes, inexplicably carried a sense of righteousness. "Young master, since the array has been broken, shall we go in?" However, looking at Ling Xiao who stood motionless in place, Yi-Zhan suddenly had a trace of doubt in his heart. "No hurry, I have consumed too much spiritual power in my body. Let me rest for a while." Ling Xiao took the initiative to step aside and glanced at the prodigies of the sea area. Finally, it settled on a burly bald young man with a rough appearance. 8th grade Divine Lord, Great Tao Law, 2000 Providence Point. Your voice is somewhat familiar. As if feeling the coldness in Ling Xiao's eyes, the bald young man frowned and suddenly said in a deep voice, "You are the young master of the Xian Turtle Clan, right?" Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, but he did not hide the murderous intent in his eyes. "You are the one who killed Tai Wu?" The young master of the Xian Turtle Clan, Xian, the #1 prodigy of the sea area, dominated his generation with an absolutely terrifying defense. At this moment, countless young men from the sea area gathered around him, all of whom seemed to be led by him. "That's right." Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Xian meaningfully. "Little turtle, you are quite capable. I wonder how many slashes and punches your turtle shell can withstand? Your aura is unstable, so I won't attack you. But when we enter the secret territory, I will crush you with my own hand." Xian smiled coldly, but the moment his voice fell, he felt a chill rising from the soles of his feet. Ling Tian took a step forward and stood in front of Ling Xiao. The sword intent in his eyes almost cut the entire sea curtain into pieces. "Little Tian, there's no need." Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and patted Ling Tian's shoulder lightly. With the latter's battle prowess, it would not be too surprising for him to face off against Xian. However, Xian did have some luck. No matter how small the mosquito was, it was still meat. If he didn't eat, wouldn't people think that he, Ling Xiao, was arrogant? "Brother, let me do it. He dared to threaten you. Let me chop off his head as an apology." Ling Tian frowned with a calm expression. However, the words that came out of his mouth gave off an extremely cold and ruthless feeling. "How dare you? 2 humans, how dare you act so presumptuously in my sea?" Behind Xian, a prodigy of the sea tribe shouted angrily. However, facing a group of enraged prodigies, Ling Tian did not show a trace of fear. Instead, there was a hint of excitement. "I can't kill a 5th grade divine emperor. But you bunch of deity overlord ants, isn't it a piece of cake? What happened to Big Brother? When did her temper become so gentle? If it was in the past, anyone who provoked him would only end up in a miserable state. Presumptuous! How dare you speak to the young master like that? You must be tired of living." However, before Ling Tian could speak, Yi-Zhan, who was beside him, took a step forward. A divine king's spiritual aura smashed down toward Xian and the others. In just an instant, a prodigy of the sea tribe coughed out blood and fell to the ground. His aura was completely weakened. Buzz! Xian's eyes narrowed as he raised his palm. A ray of demonic light suddenly lit up and turned into a black tortoise shell that blocked above everyone's head. Even so, his figure was still pushed back by Yi-Zhan's spiritual aura. As his aura fluctuated, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. "Human, I will remember you." Xian's face was gloomy. Especially when he felt Yi-Zhan's strength, his eyes flashed with surprise. "All right. Since the ancient monument has appeared, let's go in." Ling Xiao smiled indifferently and took the initiative to retreat to the side, giving the entrance to the ancient monument to everyone. Although Yi-Zhan's face had a trace of doubt, he did not ask much in the end. He followed closely behind Ling Xiao and retreated. The young master must have his reasons for doing so. Regarding Ling Xiao's thoughts and character, Yi trusted him greatly. Seeing this scene, the prodigies of the Sea tribe no longer hesitated and rushed towards the ancient monument's entrance. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sound of breaking through the sea suddenly resounded. In just a breath's time, dozens of Sea tribe prodigies stepped into the ancient monument and disappeared. Only Xian and the young masters of the other two royal clans, the Emperor Whale clan and the Demon Mane clan, did not move. However, although the cultivation of these two royal young masters was terrifying, they did not have the slightest bit of providence, which really disappointed Ling Xiao. It shouldn't be. In this southern border, there were constant battles, especially in the Sea tribe. They had not stopped for thousands of years. But apart from Shi and Yi, the one with the highest providence was actually a tortoise. Was this reasonable? Inexplicably, Ling Xiao suddenly thought of the missing young master of the Flood Dragon clan. Could it be that this young master was a person of great providence? Atavistic bloodline, I hope you can give me some surprises. Boom! Not long after the prodigies of the Sea tribe entered the ancient monument, there was suddenly a deafening buzz. The terrifying thunder power was like the Milky Way, instantly illuminating the entire sea region. Among them, there was even a trace of burnt meat fragrance wafting out, which sent chills down one's spine. F***CK? Suddenly, everyone's eyes were on Ling Xiao. It was no wonder that the human youth had not entered the formation even though he had broken it. It turned out that this ancient monument had other tricks. Insidious. Despicable. Sure enough, there was no good in the human race. Even Yi felt his scalp go numb when he felt the vast thunder power emitted from the monument at this time. With his 9th grade Divine King realm, if he was caught off guard, he would probably be crushed into pieces by this thunder power, right? Young master. Wise. Sure enough, believing in the young master would lead to a long life. The chosen one has complete trust in the villain and worships him. He is only one step away from bliss. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Hearing the notification from the system, Ling Xiao's lips suddenly curled into a smile, but his expression was obviously very surprised. The Sea Emperor's tricks are indeed terrifying. The Sea Emperor? Hearing this, whether it was Xian or the other two young masters, a trace of shock flashed in their eyes. Judging from this young human's words, he did not seem to be aware of the changes? And this array was set up by the Sea Emperor? Everyone present had a deep understanding of this new Sea tribe Emperor's array attainments. No wonder this thunder power was so vast and mysterious. Even if one was an emperor god, if they entered rashly, they would definitely die, right? Of course, even if the Sea Emperor was scheming, he probably did not expect Ling Xiao's understanding of thunder to be several times more terrifying than his. He did not know about arrays, but the thunder intent in this monument could not escape Ling Xiao's perception. Young master, what should we do? Yi expression turned stern, and he felt helpless. The ancestral land was right in front of them, but they were stopped by an array. Moreover, judging from the power of this array just now, even Lord Ling Xiao would be at his wits' end, right? Sigh, for the Sea tribe's common people, for the young master's grand ambition, I will give it a try even if I have to risk my life. Ling Xiao suddenly sighed softly, and his handsome face emitted a dazzling light. At this moment, the hesitation in the eyes of the Sea tribe's prodigies dissipated. Even Xian's face had a touch of shock. Listening to this young man, he is going to enter the ancient monument and break the array? F***CK. This human was something, wasn't he? Chapter 764. Young Master. How righteous! Yi expression was slightly shocked. He originally thought that Ling Xiao must have seen some clues in the tablet, which was why he didn't enter the tablet in a hurry. Instead, he asked the Sea Clan prodigies to go in and test it out. But at this time, seeing the majestic light emitted from the young master, he couldn't wait to slap himself twice to show his guilt. How can I be so suspicious of the young master? If the young master is afraid of death, he can hide behind others at this time. Why must he force himself to stand out? It turns out that I misunderstood the young master. Ziyan, you're so vicious. I'm afraid that this woman set up such a trap not to kill others, but to kill me. Did that mean that young Master Ling Xiao had somehow saved his life? Young Master, thank you. Yijan suddenly looked at Ling Xiao with a serious expression and bowed deeply. I'm also doing it for the good fortune. Ling Xiao shook his head indifferently. But the more he did so, the more Yijan respected him. A gentleman loves wealth and obtains it in the right way. This sentence was also suitable for the path of immortality. It was obvious that young Master Ling Xiao was the pure-hearted, righteous, and peerless gentleman that everyone spoke of. How could a person like him have any bad intentions? It's ridiculous that Ao Sun and Ao Yi reminded him to be wary of the young master. I think you're just narrow-minded. Blame the young master for killing your disciples. Young master, this is my natal spiritual treasure, the golden Jiao Si flipping seal. It's a heavenly treasure. I can lend it to you temporarily. I hope it can help you resist the array formation's power. Yijan waved his hand, and a golden ancient seal fell from the sky and landed in front of Ling Xiao. The Tao patterns on it flickered and exuded an immortal charm. There was a faint golden Jiao shadow floating up and down, evolving mysteriously. Oh! Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, and the corner of his mouth became more playful. Not bad, little seafood. I'm very gratified by your awareness. And all of you, hand over all your defensive spiritual treasures. As if feeling the surprise in Ling Xiao's eyes, Yijan's face turned red, and there was an inexplicable excitement in his heart. Why should we hand over our spiritual treasures to a human? A prodigy from the Sea Clan sneered with disdain. If Lord Ling Xiao falls, none of you will be able to enter the ruins. Even if young master breaks the ancient formation, you will not be able to escape death. Yijan looked at the crowd coldly. His God-King aura swept out, instantly causing many sky prides to change their expressions. Humph! Do you really think that you, a divine king, can do as you please? The young master of the Emperor Whale clan was called Jing Luo. He was a handsome young man who was also a grade 8 divine marquis. His golden robe shone brightly. For a young master of a royal family like him, it was impossible for him not to have some life-saving trump cards. Especially since this historical site was located in the forbidden land of the Dead Sea, the elders of the clan would definitely bestow great treasures to protect the Tao. Not to mention godly kings, even godly emperors would have to expend some effort to kill them. No. Yijan shook his head slightly, and the corner of his mouth suddenly raised into a cold smile. Based on the fact that the relic behind this ancient monument is the ancestral land of my heavenly alligators. Boom! A demonic shadow suddenly stepped out from behind Yijan. Brilliant golden scales and scarlet eyes, all of them revealed the ferocious barbarism that belonged to the ancient overlord race. Before Jing Luo could react, Yijan took a step forward and appeared in front of him in an instant. Then, he stomped his foot fiercely. Puchi! Even though the young master of the Emperor Whale clan had many tricks up his sleeve, the disparity in their cultivation levels still caused him to vomit blood and fall to the ground instantly. If he had not revealed his true form at the last moment, he would have been completely GG under Yijan's stomp. If you want to enter the relic, take out your life-saving treasure. Otherwise, get lost. Yijan stood in the void and glanced at the crowd coldly. So comfortable. This feeling of acting tough was so satisfying that it was irresistible. 300 years. In the blink of an eye, I haven't acted tough for 300 years. Ziyan. Just you wait. When I integrate with the immortal source and step into the grade 9 divine emperor realm, I will kill you personally. Heavenly Alligator's ancestral land? I didn't expect you to be from the Heavenly Alligator clan. Xian and the other Sea clan prodigies' expressions changed. Especially when they felt Izhan's demonic aura, they instinctively felt a suppression from their bloodline. The Heavenly Alligator clan was rumored to have been destroyed in the long river of history. Everyone was curious about how Izhan managed to survive. However, his survival did not mean that the Heavenly Alligator clan had survived. Perhaps Izhan was just a fish that had escaped the net. The ancestral land of the Heavenly Alligator clan? Just the thought of it made people's hearts surge. It was said that this clan was bestowed with the immortal source by the ancient god. Swish. This. Young master, this is our clan's supreme treasure, the chaos-flowing light mirror. It can withstand an attack from a grade 8 divine emperor. I hope you can break the array and take us into the ancient realm. Young master, I have an earth essence divine talisman here. In the end, many Sea clan prodigies took out their treasures and handed them to Ling Xiao. I don't have any defensive treasures on me. Because of my defense, I am invincible in the sea. Xian walked to Ling Xiao with a gloomy expression and sneered. However, Ling Xiao shook his head. Young Master Xian, there is no need for that. Xian's expression turned serious. It seems that you are not as arrogant as you said in the voice transmission talisman. In Xian's opinion, Ling Xiao must have regretted killing Tai Mu. The human race was indeed a bunch of trash. When you get hard, he softens. The problem is, I haven't even gotten hard yet. I was just about to show you my turtle shell, and you are already taking the initiative to show me your goodwill. Damn. Young Master Xian, you misunderstood. What I meant was that you don't have to take any treasures. You are the biggest treasure here. Ling Xiao smiled gently. However, before Xian's playful expression disappeared, it completely froze. Damn? I am a treasure? What do you mean by that? Young Master Xian, will you go in with me? Ling Xiao took out the treasure in his hand and turned to look at Xian. I heard that your defense is the strongest in the sea. This array should not be a problem, right? This array. Xian opened his mouth slightly and turned to look in the direction of the ancient tablet. Just now, he had felt the fluctuations coming from inside very clearly. Even if the geniuses who entered were not as powerful as him, they were still the top geniuses of the sea. But now, except for the smell of meat, there was no movement inside. Young man, should I thank you for thinking so highly of me, or should I hate you for deliberately targeting me? Although I am not the top genius of the Xingzhou state, I am still the top genius of the sea. If I go in, I will die. You want to go in with me? Are you trying to show off? If you really dare to go in, I will go in with you. What? Young Master Xian, are you afraid? Ling Xiao shook his head helplessly. The top genius of the sea? That's it? Chapter 765. Humph. Human, don't be too arrogant. Xian's face darkened. The way the sea race prodigies were looking at him gave him an inexplicable sense of pressure. It seemed like there was no way out. If he retreated now, he would not only lose face for the Xian turtle clan, but for the entire sea race. Please, young Master Xian. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, his expression calm. A golden seal above his head bloomed with a mysterious light. There seemed to be a dragon's shadow winding down and enveloping Ling Xiao. Of course, even though the formation set up by Ziyan was extremely frightening, it was not a threat to Ling Xiao in the slightest. Brother, let Suner go in with you? Ling Tian had a nervous expression on his face, and a hint of worry could be seen in his eyes. After all, he was not good at defense. If he entered the ancient tablet rashly, it would be easy to distract Ling Xiao. However, Yi Sun-er was different. Her life Dao law could prolong Ling Xiao's life at a critical moment. No need. Ling Xiao shook his head. In the end, he did not hesitate and walked into the ancient tablet first. Behind him, Xian gritted his teeth. Demonic aura spread out from his body and condensed into a black turtle shell, enveloping him. On the turtle shell, Dao patterns flickered. Divine light bloomed, revealing a feeling of invincibility. If this killing array was really set up by Ziyan, even he would have to be careful. All the talents of the Xian turtle clan were gathered on this armor. The strongest defense of the sea region was not just for show. When the two of them stepped into the ancient tablet, there was a deafening sound of thunder. Yi Zhan and the others looked serious. Compared to the people of the sea region, he did not want anything to happen to Ling Xiao. Not only because Ling Xiao's death meant that it would be difficult for him to return to the ancestral land. More importantly, the righteousness of this human young master had already convinced him. Humans and demons had been at odds since ancient times. However, anyone who stood at the top would always have a few like-minded friends and brothers. In Yi Zhan's opinion, Ling Xiao was qualified to stand side by side with him. Even if his cultivation was weak now, his wisdom was incomparable to that of Yi Zhan. With a brother like this, his path to immortality would definitely be much smoother. Boom boom! Within the ancient monument space, Ling Xiao stood with his hands clasped behind his back, coldly staring at the majestic ancient array in front of him. At the end of the space, an ancient bronze door stood on the other side of the Sea of Lightning. It was mottled with rust and emitted an ancient and sorrowful aura. In the middle of the bronze door, there was a particularly conspicuous rhombus-shaped groove. Obviously, that was where the ancestral heavenly alligator writ was placed. However, at this moment, layers of lightning energy formed a sea within the ancient tablet, isolating the ancient bronze door. Above the Sea of Lightning, waves surged, emitting a terrifying aura that made one's scalp go numb. And if one wanted to safely cross this sea, it was likely that even the people of the God Emperors would not be able to do it easily. Xian's expression turned solemn, and the space between his brows was similarly filled with shock and fear. Such a lightning formation would most likely melt upon entering it. Young Master Xian, it seems that we have to work together. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a sinister smile. Xian's cultivation was not high, and he was in the category of being killed with a wave of his hand. However, Ling Xiao did not want to waste the 2,000 fate points on him so easily. Now, as his heaven's will forging value increased, killing ordinary heaven's will was no longer restricted by karma. However, the reward for killing them was still his main method of forging the heaven's will body. Work together? How? Don't tell me you really want to cross the Sea of Lightning and enter the secret realm? Even with Xian's temperament, he felt that this secret realm was not fated with them. Since we are here, of course we have to try our best. Otherwise, wouldn't we be letting everyone down? How about this, young Master Xian? You resist the power of the Sea of Lightning, and I will resist the lightning energy in the void. Let's cross this array together. Ling Xiao's expression was solemn, but his eyes were filled with determination. Me? Resist the power of the Sea of Lightning? Xian was clearly taken aback. He clearly did not understand Ling Xiao's words. That's right. If we each bear a part of the array's power, there might be a glimmer of hope. How do we bear the power? You transform into your true form and swim above the Sea of Lightning. I will step on you and resist the lightning energy in the void. Only by combining forces can we cross this Sea of Lightning. Ling Xiao sighed softly. Xian's face suddenly turned gloomy. Dream on. You want to ride me across the sea? Do you think I am a fool? Oh, young Master Xian, I forgot to tell you. The young master of the Heavenly Alligator clan told me that there is a celestial source in the ancestral land of the Heavenly Alligator clan. Fortune, of course, coexisted with danger. The reason why the heavenly alligator clan could dominate the endless sea region was because of the celestial source given by the ancient god. This secret was enough to make the entire sea region go crazy. As expected, after hearing Ling Zhao's words, Xian Xian's eyes flashed with greed. However, being trampled on by a human was a humiliation that was even more unbearable than being killed. I will resist the lightning energy in the void. You resist the power of the sea of lightning, and I will ride you. In the end, Xian Xian snorted coldly. However, right after he said those words, dazzling lightning suddenly blossomed above the 300-meter-wide sea of lightning. Immediately after, a terrifying silver lightning that seemed to fill the entire space within the ancient tablet descended from the sky, causing the entire sea of lightning to churn up huge waves. Moreover, the power contained in the silver lightning was dozens of times more violent than the sea of lightning. What a joke! Ziyan was indeed a 9th-grade divine emperor, the top of the Xingzhou continent. However, how could her comprehension of the Tao be compared to Ling Zhao's? Gulp. Xian Xian's face turned dull again. He looked at Ling Xiao in a daze. Are you sure you can resist the lightning in the void? I dare to say this because I am confident. Although the celestial source is good, who would joke with their life? Ling Xiao sneered. If young Master Xian Xian doesn't have the guts, then leave. Who said I don't have the guts? My Xian Turtle Clan's defense is the strongest in the sea region. What can a mere lightning energy do to me? Fine, we will do as you say. You resist the lightning energy in the void, I will resist the sea of lightning. Xian Xian clenched his teeth and suddenly revealed his true form. He crawled in front of Ling Xiao. If you can't resist it, I won't care about you. Young master, don't worry. Even if you sink, I won't. Ling Zhao's tone was calm. He took a step forward and stood on Xian Xian's turtle shell. Humph. Xian Xian didn't say anything else. The demonic aura around him fluctuated and formed another barrier outside the turtle shell. Then, he slowly crawled towards the sea of lightning. However, at this moment, his eyes flashed with extreme hatred. Just you wait. When you break through the ancient tablet's barrier, I will immediately kill you. As long as you die, no one will know that I have been humiliated like this. Lowly human, what right do you have to ride on my body? The destined child feels humiliated and his Tao heart is unstable. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Hearing the system's notification, Ling Zhao's smile grew wider. Jia. Pft. There seemed to be blood dripping from the corner of Xian Xian's mouth. His unstable Tao heart was almost shattered. You? What the hell? Do you think I am a beast? Chapter 766. Boom Boom! 1,000 feet wide sea of lightning was not considered vast. However, at that moment, being corroded by the surging lightning power, Xian Xian had to endure enormous pain with every step he took. Moreover, if it wasn't for the golden dragon divine print on Ling Zhao's body, the young master of the Xian Turtle Clan, the #1 prodigy of the sea area, would have been devoured by the lightning. But even so, blood was still spurting out from Xian Xian's mouth and nose. Even the aura around him was gradually weakening. Young Master Xian, work harder. If you continue, I won't be able to take it. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth and kicked Xian Xian. Xian roared and swam towards the end of the Thunder Sea. However, just as the two of them were about to reach the other side, there was a lightning pillar in the void. It was like a meteor falling towards the two of them. Boom! Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed and he stepped on Xian Xian's turtle shell. He turned into a ray of light and leaped to the front of the ancient bronze door. The dullness on Xian Xian's face had yet to fade away when he let out an extremely tragic cry. Ah! The lightning struck and Xian Xian's body was smashed into the depths of the Thunder Sea. Regarding this, Ling Xiao was not the least bit worried. The young master of the Xian Turtle clan had luck. He shouldn't die from ordinary hardships. Moreover, the prodigies of the sea area were gathered in the Death Sea region. The experts of the clan would definitely give them some life-saving measures. Ling Xiao was going to eat him anyway. Before that, he had to break all his tricks one by one. Although the prodigy's luck was weaker, he was still protected by the way of heaven. Ling Xiao couldn't afford to be careless. Villains shouldn't be arrogant if they didn't want to die. Even a lion would use all its strength to catch a rabbit. Boom boom! At the bottom of the Thunder Sea, there were waves rolling. In a short while, there were thousands of ripples on the surface of the sea that was originally calm. Ling Xiao looked calmly at one of the demonic shadows that broke out of the sea and threw Xian over. The demonic shadow was instantly shattered by the lightning. Oh? A divine soul incarnation of an 8th-grade divine emperor? The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up into a playful smile, while Xian's face was already pale and filled with resentment. You dare to trick me? So? Ling Xiao's expression was indifferent. There seemed to be stars shining in his eyes, and there was a vast amount of spiritual power around him. The anger on Xian's face instantly froze. In the end, he gritted his teeth and retreated to the side. At this moment, he was severely injured, and even his natal spirit shell showed signs of shattering. If he made a move now, his chances of winning weren't high. But Ling Xiao only glanced at him indifferently, turned around and walked towards the ancient bronze door, and placed the clan token in the groove. Boom! In the middle of the ancient gate, a clear light suddenly filled the air. An ancient aura surged out, instantly washing away the rust and emitting a blinding light. Faintly, a tyrannical aura from the ancient times swept through the sky and cleared the curtain of lightning. This aura had clearly surpassed the level of an emperor god. It was as though a ferocious demon had opened its eyes in the void and was looking down at Ling Xiao. Is this the aura of the heavenly crocodile ancestor? Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly. With the methods of these people who had reached the peak of the world, any trace of aura left behind was enough to crush a world. It was just that he didn't know if the soul consciousness of this demon clan expert still existed in the ancestral land. No wonder the clan token and immortal source were needed to open the heavenly crocodile ancestor's land. The clan token could only awaken the aura in the seal, and the immortal source was the key to gaining its recognition. It's the aura of the ancestor. At the entrance of the ancient tablet, auras suddenly swept over. Among them, Yixian's face flashed with a touch of joy. It was broken. Lord Ling Xiao really didn't disappoint. Inexplicably, it was a very stable feeling. Master, release the immortal source. Quickly. Okay. Ling Xiao nodded. In his Dan Si, the immortal source's power bloomed with a mysterious light. The terrifying aura that shrouded his body instantly dissipated. At the same time, the ancient bronze door finally opened a gap and lit up with a dazzling divine light. There seemed to be spirit mountains tens of thousands of feet tall, flourishing spirit trees, and countless Tao laws intertwined into a sea, shooting out 7-colored rays of light. Let's go. Ling Xiao took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. Ling Tian, Yixian, and the others no longer hesitated and followed Ling Xiao into the ancient door. The remaining Sea clan prodigies hesitated slightly. They looked at Xian's miserable state with some trepidation and finally braced themselves to enter. It wasn't until everyone stepped in that the world in front of them suddenly became clear. At this moment, what appeared in front of everyone was a place full of spiritual aura. The ancient mountains were majestic, the trees were beautiful, and the rivers were clear. The sky was tens of thousands of feet long, and there were rainbows hanging in the sky. It was very mystical. Dense spiritual energy quietly swept out, causing people's hearts to suddenly feel a sense of clarity. Welcome to my heavenly alligator's ancestral land. Yixian raised his head and closed his eyes, looking intoxicated. In the distant void, suddenly, countless figures appeared. The aura of several of them had reached the realm of 7th stage Emperor God. Young Master Yi-Zhan? When they saw Yi-Zhan in front of the crowd, the faces of those Emperor Gods in the void suddenly flashed with a touch of excitement. They hurriedly descended from the sky and bowed deeply to Yi-Zhan. Young Master! You're finally back! Haha, elders, thank you for your hard work. Close the entrance. Yi-Zhan's face suddenly raised a touch of coldness. The original humble expression suddenly turned into a touch of arrogance. I've been living in seclusion for 300 years and suffered all kinds of hardship. Now that I've finally returned to the ancestral land and have a new life, who in this world dares to disrespect me? Ha ha ha, young master, the spiritual treasure I lent you, is it? In the crowd, a Sea Clan prodigy looked at Ling Xiao and laughed in a deep voice. The treasures they lent to Ling Xiao were all life-saving treasures. In particular, the sudden appearance of this Emperor God expert made many people feel a chill in their hearts. Wasn't the heavenly alligator clan destroyed? What's wrong with these people? Didn't they come to the ancestral land to seize opportunities? Oh no, it feels like they're courting death. Oh, in the thunder array just now, everyone's treasures have been shattered. Ling Xiao's indifferent words made countless Sea Clan prodigies' faces change instantly. Shattered? It seems that's true. Even young Master Xian was almost shattered by the thunder array. If this human young man didn't rely on his spiritual treasure, how could he be safe and sound? But they were all shattered? Why don't I believe it? Young Master, could it be that those dozens of treasures were all shattered? Oh, there's one left, young Master Yi-Zhan. Ling Xiao handed the golden dragon ancient seal to Yi-Zhan casually. A divine treasure was not of much use to him at the moment. He was still counting on Yi-Zhan to take him to find the sky demon's treasure. If they fell out now, there would be a lot of trouble. In the end, Yi-Zhan will be killed. So, I'll leave my treasures with him for the time being. Does anyone have any objections? We don't produce spiritual treasures. We're just porters of spiritual treasures. Hee, if young master likes it, take it as a gift from me. Yi-Zhan shook his head and smiled. Spiritual treasures and ancient talismans were all external objects. Ling Xiao helped him return to the ancestral land several times. This kindness was precious. Now that he intended to befriend this human young master, he wouldn't be stingy. A gentleman doesn't take what others love. Young Master Yi-Zhan, please take it back. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled, then turned to look at the Sea Clan prodigies. As for these people, young Master Yi-Zhan, capture them. Yi-Zhan grinned, but the words he said made everyone's expression change instantly. How could they be captured? I haven't started the treasure hunt yet. Chapter 767. Young Lord Heavenly Alligator, why did you capture me? Xian and the others were indignant. Demonic aura rippled from their bodies as they glared at Yi-Zhan. It's right to capture you. Yi-Zhan sneered. Why? You betrayed the faith of the Sea Clan and regarded Ziyin as your queen. Is this reason enough? Lord Ling Xiao is right. As long as I control you Sea Clan young lords, I'm not afraid that your clans will not submit to me. Young Lord Yi-Zhan, you've gone too far. Xian and the others gritted their teeth fiercely. Now that the entrance to the ancestral land was sealed, they had no choice but to circulate their spiritual power and flee madly into the depths of the heavenly alligator's ancestral land. You're overestimating yourselves. Capture them alive. Yi-Zhan's eyes were full of disdain as he waved his hand gently. Several Emperor Gods in front of him suddenly stepped forward. Spiritual light bloomed from their bodies, instantly blocking the escaping people in mid-air. That's right. These Sea Clan prodigies more or less had some life-saving trump cards on them. But now, facing a group of Emperor Gods, no matter how many tricks they had, it was just a last-ditch struggle. In a short while, They were all captured by the Heavenly Alligator clan and thrown in front of Yijan. Ling Tian stood next to Ling Xiao with a guarded expression, holding the ancient sword in his hand. Although the young lord of the Heavenly Alligator clan was extremely respectful to his brother, who knew if he would kill them all when they had outlived their usefulness. Wait until I control the celestial source, then I'll deal with you and take you back to the clan. Yijan snorted coldly and turned to look at Ling Xiao. Young master, shall we go? Not yet. Ling Xiao shook his head slightly, looking inexplicably dignified. He didn't take Yijan seriously. Even these Heavenly Alligator clan elites couldn't pose the slightest threat to him now. Even if the Heavenly Alligator ancestor's remnant soul was here, Ling Xiao only needed to trap it in the Soul Sea and use the power of the ancestral symbol to kill it. However, this woman, Ziyan, was really insidious. Ling Xiao had to be on guard. Young master, is there anything else? Yijan looked at Ling Xiao with a puzzled expression, but he saw that the latter's gaze was always at the entrance. Young master Yijan, now that the Heavenly Crocodile ancestral land is opened and the seal is broken, once Ziyan notices it, she will come here. Do you have any 9th grade Divine Emperors in your clan? 9th grade Divine Emperor? No. In my Heavenly Crocodile clan, only my father and I survive. The Lost clan is just a servant of my Heavenly Crocodile clan. Their talents are limited. Even if they have cultivated for hundreds of years, they are only rank 8 expert. Yijan sighed softly and soon understood Ling Xiao's concerns. With Ziyan's attainments in the Array Dao, the Heavenly Alligator ancestral land's Array Dao might not be foolproof. Once that woman noticed the commotion here, she would definitely take action. If she were to break the ancient array and step into the ancestral land, the Heavenly Alligator clan would face a catastrophe. The seal left behind by the ancestors had been broken along with the stone tablet. In the entire sea region, who could stop Ziyan's footsteps? I have an array that may be able to stop the Sea Emperor, but Ling Xiao wanted to say something but stopped. Yijan glared at him angrily. Young master, you and I are close. Why can't you say it? My array is called the 100 Emperors Array. As the name suggests, it combines the power of 100 emperors into one array. The more emperor gods there are, the more powerful it is. With Ziyan's strength, I'm afraid, 100 emperors array? The more emperor gods there are, the more powerful it is? Yijan's expression turned cold as if he suddenly realized something. Great array. Combining the power of 100 emperors into one array, this array is marvelous. Young master, what are you hesitating for? Hurry up and set up the array. But if I trap you, Emperor God Heavenly Alligator, in the array, once something happens in the ancestral land, won't it? Ling Xiao's tone was difficult, but in fact, he was sneering in his heart. From the beginning, he had been caring for Yijan as a caring father. In other words, on the surface, Ling Xiao's every decision seemed to be from Yijan's point of view. No matter who it was, if they were supported all the way through difficulties and obstacles to return to the ancestral land, trust would be born in their hearts. What's more, Ling Xiao's strength was only at the level of a divine overlord. Even Ling Tian and Yi Suner were at the level of a divine overlord. The reason why he did not bring Xiao Jiao and the others with him was to further lower Yijan's guard. You're a 9th grade divine king. Would you be afraid of me, a mere divine overlord? Therefore, in Yijan's eyes, Ling Xiao was a friend who was not a threat to him, a confidant and a good person. Unfortunately, there are many actors in this world. Some can be seen through at a glance, some until the moment of their death. Something happened in the ancestral land? Young master, are you looking down on me? This is the ancestral land of the Heavenly Alligator. What can happen? Don't worry, I'll send someone to summon all the emperor gods of the Heavenly Alligator clan. For us, Ziyan is the biggest change. Yijan smiled helplessly and patted Ling Xiao's shoulder. Good brother, we're going to integrate the immortal source and demonic treasure soon. This process will be extremely long. We can't be disturbed by anyone. Just set up the array. In this ancestral land, no one can hurt you. Well, okay. Since young master is so certain, please summon all the god emperors in the ancestral land. In the end, Ling Xiao gritted his teeth and nodded reluctantly. The only array he had mastered was the 9 dragons sky imprisoning array. This array was now complete. It was easy to trap and kill emperor gods. However, as long as one had the slightest bit of intelligence, one would not easily step into something like a formation. But, hey look, they walked in on their own. What can I do? Of course, I'll stew them in a pot. In this way, the ancestral land of the Heavenly Alligator clan is our home. The advantage of setting up the array was to obtain the greatest benefits at the smallest cost. Without wasting a single soldier, we can kill thousands of enemies. Of course, I'm not proficient in arrays, but I'm proficient in ghost cultivation techniques. After inviting them into the urn, it's time to stew seafood in an iron pot and enjoy a feast. Good brother. Without you, I don't know how to return to the peak. Don't worry, in the future, when I conquer the sea and dominate the world, I'll give you one of the 5 borders of the Xingzhou continent. Yijan was in high spirits and sighed deeply. It was as if he was passing judgment on the world. Ling Xiao just nodded indifferently. He walked to the entrance and sat down cross-legged. Buzz. A ray of golden light suddenly bloomed in the sky. Layers of Taoist rhymes began to evolve. Everyone saw tens of thousands of clouds falling from the sky, turning into an ancient array that completely covered the entrance of the ancestral land. The dazzling golden light completely covered the void, blocking everyone's sight and soul consciousness. However, the power that it gave off caused many Emperor God experts to change their expressions abruptly. Especially the dragon roar that came from the array from time to time. It was like a great bell, intimidating people. What a terrifying array! Yijan was shocked. He clapped his hands and sighed. Quick, go and summon all the emperor gods of my clan. Yes, young master. Chapter 768. Roar! A loud dragon roar resounded through thousands of miles of territory. Golden light rushed into the sky, shattering the clouds. An indescribably horrifying aura suppressed the entire area, making one's heart palpitate. In the dragon array, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. In front of him, 10 soul pillars flickered strangely. Young master, our clan's emperor gods are all here. Yijan's voice came from outside the array. At this time, his face flashed with a touch of sincere awe. As expected of you, the array-breaking master. With such attainments in array formation, it would be impossible to achieve such an achievement without studying array formations for 500 years. Hearing that, Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile, and he disappeared on the spot. Thank you for your trouble. Ling Xiao stood beside Yijan and looked at the 9 emperor gods in front of him. Among these 9 people, the highest cultivation was at the 8th stage realm. There was 1 6th stage realm, 3 5th stage realm, and 1 4th stage, 3rd stage, 2nd stage, and 1st stage. At this time, the emperor gods looked at Ling Xiao with a trace of caution. Although they did not know how this human gained the young master's trust. But what can I do? We are the slaves of the Heavenly Alligator clan. Let alone an array in front of us, even if it's a steamer we have to go in. Look at that array. It's round and tall, and it's shining with golden light. The more you look at it, the more it looks like a steamer. Damn. Young master. I'll go back to the clan first and prepare to open the sealed land. After you finish setting up the array, come to the temple in the center of the ancestral land to find me. Yijan took a deep look at Ling Xiao and suddenly bowed. Yes, I'll have to trouble you, young master. The few of you, listen to young master's orders. If you dare to disobey, I'll destroy your body and soul. Yes, young master. Beep, the destined son of destiny, betrayed the slaves and defected to the enemy. He has 1 foot in hell. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Ling Tian, you go to the ancestral land with young master Yijan first. Everyone, follow me. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently and walked toward the center of the formation. Although the 9 emperor gods looked uneasy, they dared not disobey Yijan's orders. Most of the slaves had life and death objects in the hands of their masters. Therefore, no matter how much they distrusted Ling Xiao, they could only obediently follow him into the 9 dragons' great formation. Buzz. Golden radiance sprinkled down and enveloped the 9 figures. Although this formation was extremely powerful, there was still some risk in trapping the 9 thearchs at the same time. However, if the 9 of them were trapped by the soul-binding pillars, to Ling Xiao, they were like 9 spirit stones, the big and bright kind. Seniors, this way please? Ling Xiao stood in front of the soul pillar and waved at the 9 thearch. What is this? At the head of the group, the 8th grade divine emperor creased his eyebrows and hesitation could be seen on his aged face. For some reason, he felt a strong sense of unease the moment he saw the soul pillar. This pillar is the array core. I may have to trouble the seniors for the time being. Otherwise, if Zi Huang catches up with you, I'm afraid you and young master Yijan will not escape death. Ling Xiao explained patiently with a solemn expression. Who is Zi Huang? Zi Huang is the overlord of the Endless Sea. He is the one who killed Clan Master Yijan and took young Master Yijan's immortal source and monster elixir to enter the 9th grade Divine Emperor realm. What? Hearing that, Emperor God Heavenly Crocodile's expression changed. A 9th grade Divine Emperor was the top person in this world. Even more, this realm was not something that could be achieved with hard work. It also required great talent. The higher the cultivation, the stronger the heavenly ways suppression. For example, Emperor God Heavenly Crocodile had entered the 8th grade Divine Emperor realm a few hundred years ago but could not take another step forward. Seniors, the situation has forced me. Let's hurry up. It will be a little painful at first, but you will get used to it soon. Ling Xiao smiled warmly. His white robe fluttered in the wind. No matter how one looked at him, he looked like a celestial being. All right. Thank you, mister. In the end, the 9 emperors took a deep breath and stepped into the soul pillar. In the next moment, Ling Xiao's face was filled with evilness. His eyes shone brightly like the 9 sky demon scars, revealing an ancient aura. Around him, his soul power was vast and it evolved into thousands of strange phenomena. There seemed to be tens of thousands of souls howling and hundreds of ghosts walking at night. It was extremely eerie and evil. The dark Inyama scripture was the inheritance of the ghost clan in the upper domain. Its power was terrifying. Moreover, the ghost clan had to devour Yin Qi and soul power to cultivate this scripture. Ling Xiao only needed to kill Tianming and move his finger to fill up his experience bar. To put it bluntly, even the first and second descendants of the ghost clan that Gui Wupu mentioned might not be as thorough as Ling Xiao. The Yama soul pillar could devour divine souls, spiritual energy and blood qi. It was evil. Today, Ling Xiao revealed his 8th grade Divine Emperor realm soul power for the first time. One could imagine how powerful it was. F*CK, the 9 emperor gods looked at the young man who had turned into a ghost demon. There was nothing but shock in their eyes. However, why was there such a strong ghost qi in this young man's body? Also, what was with this divine emperor realm soul power? Why did it seem like he was more powerful than them? Seniors, scream if you want to. Here, no one will hear you even if you scream yourself hoarse. The corners of Ling Xiao's lips curled into a cold smile. In the next moment, he stretched out his hand. On the soul pillar, countless divine soul chains extended and pierced deeply into the bodies of the 9 emperors. Ah! blood-curdling screams instantly rang out. Before the astonishment in the eyes of the 9 great emperor gods had dissipated, their expressions had completely turned malevolent. However, although Ling Zhao's divine soul was at the 8th grade great emperor realm, it was still difficult for him to imprison the 9 emperors at the same time. Around the 9 emperors, there was a demonic glow. They struggled desperately and the entire formation shook violently. Boom boom! Thousands of spiritual powers swept across like waves. They collided and tore cracks in the void. Even the soul pillars behind the 9 of them had dimmed somewhat. Obviously, it was difficult for Ling Xiao to suppress them all by himself, especially the 8th grade Great Emperor. His demonic aura fluctuated and broke the countless divine soul chains. Little bastard! You are indeed up to no good! The 9 emperors roared angrily. Even so, Ling Xiao did not panic at all. Instead, he looked even more playful. He did not expect the Yama Soul Pillar to be so terrifying. Even the 8th grade Great Emperor realm could not break free. If he had not trapped the 9 emperors together, he could have killed them on the spot without any external help. Of course, the prerequisite was that they had to be bound to the Soul Pillar obediently. 9 Dragons Sky Prison Formation Suppress. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked above the ancient formation. Then, he shouted. 9 dragon silhouettes suddenly tore through the clouds and descended from the sky like heavenly pillars. Before the 9 emperors could break free from the soul pillars, they felt a heaven-suppressing force falling from the sky. Instantly, their demonic aura was annihilated. The screams stopped abruptly. The figures of the 9 emperors were gradually covered by the golden light. Ling Xiao sat cross-legged on the spot. The spiritual light around him was dazzling. The 9 soul chains connected the figures of the 9 emperors and devoured their spiritual energy and divine souls. The physical bodies of the 9 emperors shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. Heaven and earth suddenly fell silent, and not a sound could be heard. Only the golden formation shone brightly like a fairy. It stood quietly at the entrance of the ancestral land, emitting a dazzling brilliance. Sigh. Lord Ling Xiao is such a good person. In the center of the ancestral land, Yi Zhan and Ling Tian stood side by side. They looked at the fluctuating spiritual aura in the void and sighed. Chapter 769. At the entrance of the heavenly crocodile ancestral land, a ripple suddenly appeared in the sea. Immediately after, a graceful figure in purple stepped on the sea and looked coldly at the broken ancient tablet in front of her. At this moment, there seemed to be lightning flashing in her eyes, but her expression was inexplicably gloomy. Just now, when the Flood Dragon human experts arrived at the Sea Emperor Palace, Ziyen felt the fluctuations of the array here. However, she was confident in her means. Not to mention a few divine overlords and divine kings, even if the Flood Dragon human ancestor came personally, it would be impossible to break her array easily. However, the scene in front of her seemed to have slapped Ziyan's face hard. Not only was the array broken, but the barrier on the bronze stone door also seemed to have disappeared. In other words, Yi Zhan should have entered. How could it be? How could a piece of trash like him break through his technique so easily? Suddenly, Ziyen thought of a person. Ling Xiao. From the moment Ao Sun and Ao Yi appeared in the Sea Emperor Palace, Ziyen felt a little uneasy. This human youth had sent a message saying that he would give her a big gift. However, Ziyen didn't believe that the Flood Dragon human clan would dare to step out of their ancestral land, let alone dare to cause trouble in the Sea Emperor Palace. Although Ziyen still made arrangements, it was more out of caution. However, in the end, not only did the Flood Dragon human race come, but they also sent all their divine emperors. If Ling Xiao wasn't a prophet, then it could only mean that this human youth's temperament and means were far more terrifying than she had imagined. Who was Ao Sun? The Flood Dragon human ancestor, an old thing that had lived for hundreds of years. As the saying went, the older one was, the more afraid of death one was. Since Ao Sun dared to die willingly, either he was forced to or he was lucky. Ziyen felt that the probability of the former was higher. Now that the ancient tablet seal was broken, Yi most likely returned to the ancestral land. If Ling Xiao hadn't given her such a big gift before, Ziyen would have suspected that this youth was in cahoots with Yi. Buzz! Behind Ziyen, there was a ripple again. Immediately after, a black-clothed divine emperor appeared and bowed deeply to Ziyen. "Your Majesty! You're back so soon?" Ziyen frowned slightly, but she felt uneasy in her heart. The god emperors of the flood dragon human race had all died in his hands. This ancient race that had been passed down for 1,000 years could be said to have been annihilated. Therefore, Ziyen had sent the experts of the Sea Emperor's palace, wanting to take over the clan's resources. But why did he come back so quickly? Dragon transformation. See. If you have something to say, just say it. Ziyen gloomily glanced at the black-robed god emperor as the uneasiness in her heart grew stronger. The dragon transformation was massacred, not a single person was left alive. The black-robed god emperor smiled bitterly and there was a tinge of fear in his eyes. As the largest sea area in the Endless Sea, the dragon transformation had at least 30,000 monsters, if not 80,000. But in a single day their entire clan was massacred. He was Ziyan's personal guard and had followed her on expeditions to the sea for nearly 100 years. However, compared to the past, the tragedy in the dragon transformation this time was truly tragic. Thousands of miles of land had turned into a sea of blood. The shadows of corpses formed mountains, and all living beings were slaughtered. Furthermore, what was even more frightening was that the formation outside the Crystal Palace had clearly not been broken, but it was filled with the corpses of the flood dragon humans. What? Lightning suddenly flashed in Ziyan's eyes, and the sea was instantly torn apart. It was clear that she was extremely shocked. Even though the flood dragon humans' god emperors were dead, there were still many god kings in the dragon transformation sea, not to mention that ancient formation protecting the clan. If this was not Ling Xiao's doing, Ziyen would definitely not believe it. Since he had the means to lure Ao Sun and the others out of the dragon transformation sea, he probably already had the intention of exterminating this clan. For the first time, Ziyen felt that this was an opponent that could not be measured through cultivation. Furthermore, to be able to silently wipe out a royal clan, Ling Xiao definitely had a faction behind him. Investigate. Find out who did it. Emperor. The Crystal Palace's formation was not broken. I suspect that there is an internal conflict within their clan. Slap. Before the black-robed god emperor could finish speaking, Ziyen had already ruthlessly slapped him, sending him to the ground. Fool. Emperor, please calm down. How is Snake House? Ziyan's expression gradually calmed down. Although Ling Xiao had indeed given her many surprises today, he was still a youth. However, he was only a young man, and his strength would always be his weakness. Commander Snake is still on the hunting list, said Yi Futian. You may leave. Ziyen nodded indifferently. She lifted her foot and walked into the remnant of the ancient tablet. Looking at the towering ancient bronze door in the distance, she was slightly hesitant. She did not know what kind of secrets were hidden behind this ancient door. However, when she had first arrived here, she had felt a trace of desolate aura. That was a terrifying demonic might that had transcended this world, causing Ziyen to feel a lot of pressure. That was why she had sealed the ancient tablet and spread the rumor that there was a great demon hiding in the Death Sea. She had even personally killed a few sea race god emperors who had come to explore this place. Only then did this rumor become true. However, no matter how much she had calculated, she had never expected that there would be a day when Yi Zhan could break her lightning formation and return to the ancestral land. Once there was an expert that had transcended the God-Emperor realm in this 1,000-year-old secret realm. Her 300 years of planning would be completely in vain. She was hesitating whether to open this ancient bronze door or not. If she did, would she be able to bear the consequences? Fine, I will wait for you for a month. But in the end, Ziyen did not act rashly. Instead, she set up 2 new formations and sealed this place again. Only then did she turn and disappear. She still remembered her promise with Ling Xiao. The young man had said that he would bring Yizhan's head to her within a month in exchange for a promise from her. Since Yizhan had returned to the ancestral land, even if she chased after him now, it would be useless. 300 years ago, she had not been able to kill Yizhan, who was seriously injured, let alone him who had returned to the ancestral land. Naturally, Ziyen would not believe that the ancient overlord clan did not have any arrangements in their ancestral land. She could afford to wait for a month. Of course, even with Ziyen's temperament, she would not have thought that all the god-emperors of the ancient overlord clan had been turned into spirit stones by Ling Xiao. Buzz. Xingzhou's eastern border, where the Ling people were located. A white-robed figure stepped through the air and stood in the sky above Cold Sky City. The person who came was a beautiful middle-aged woman. She was exuding a vast god-emperor's aura. Her graceful and dignified face carried a hint of arrogance. However, before her figure landed, a palm print suddenly came crashing down from the void, instantly crushing the firmament and almost covering the sky. Layers of Taoist rhymes circulated on it, containing an indescribably terrifying aura. I am Elder Shui Rou of the Sacred Sect. Under the order of the first divine envoy, I have come here to pay a visit to the master of the Ling people. Shui Rou shouted in surprise, but her heart was filled with shock. Didn't they say that the eastern border was barren and there were not many experts? But why did this spiritual light handprint have a kind of power that was not weaker than divine envoy Dugu's? Chapter 770. An Elder of the Saint? The First Oracle? All of a sudden, several terrifying figures appeared in the sky. Ling Tianlin, in a white robe, stood in front of the crowd, frowning. His deep and indifferent eyes were like the abyss between heaven and earth, which made people feel terrified. From the moment Shui Rou appeared in Cold Sky City, he had sensed it. With the Ling clan's current status in the eastern border, no one dared to be so presumptuous and fly above Cold Sky City. A 5th-grade divine emperor was the top in the eastern border. As for Shui Rou's appearance, it was truly somewhat unfamiliar. She was an elder of the saint. Of course, if she was just an ordinary elder of the saint, Ling Tianlin had 137 ways to make her disappear in the eastern border. But did she just say that she was the first oracle? Ling Tianlin naturally knew about the most mysterious oracle of the saint sect. It was said that this person had a golden mask and had never shown his face, but his cultivation had reached the peak of the world. However, why would the first divine envoy send someone to the Ling clan? All of a sudden, Ling Tianlin had a guess. Ling Xiao. Among the Ling people, only Ling Xiao was not in the eastern border. Although Ling Tianlin had given him many protective items, his identity meant that he was destined to be in danger. If he had not made other arrangements, Ling Tianlin would have sent someone to capture him. You are the master of Ling people? Shui Rou looked at Ling Tianlin in shock. She could easily sense the cultivation levels of the few god-emperors present, but this middle-aged man seemed to be surrounded by a celestial opportunity that blocked her divine sense. That's right. Elder, why have you come to Ling people? Ling Tianlin looked indifferent. When he opened his eyes, there were many strange phenomena. I heard that your young master is Ling Xiao. Is he in the clan now? Shui Rou stared at Ling Tianlin's face, as if she did not want to miss any of his expressions. She had heard the name Ling Xiao from the divine envoys. Although she did not know why a young man from the ancient clan would be so important to the oracle. but she did not dare to ask. "Oh? I wonder why Elder is inquiring about Xiao Er?" The killing intent in Ling Tianlin's eyes suddenly intensified. No matter what the divine emissary of the sacred cult came for, he had no intention of letting him go so easily. Ling Zhao's path to immortality had just begun, and the Xingzhou continent was nothing more than a training ground for him. Only by passing the test would one be able to obtain supreme honor. Haha, it's fine. Clan leader, you only need to tell me if Master Ling Xiao is in the clan. If he isn't, where did he go? Shui Rou smiled faintly as a golden talisman flickered in her hand. At this moment, in Cold Sky City, the vassals of the Ling people had already walked out of the clan hall and looked into the sky. Among them, there was a thin and tall young man with a gloomy expression between his brows. "Clan Master, why is this elder of the sacred cult suddenly inquiring about Master Ling Zhao's whereabouts? Could it be?" An old man behind the young man asked softly. "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask, lest you bring disaster to the Qin clan." The young man wore a golden robe and a golden crown. He was the current clan leader of the Qin clan, Qinling. Now that the situation in the eastern border was settled, the supreme sects were either destroyed or hidden away like the ethereal Dao Palace. The Ling people were the undisputed overlords of the eastern border. As their vassal, Qinling had moved his entire clan to Cold Sky City to show his loyalty. In the short span of a year, the cultivation base of this Qin clan leader had improved tremendously. Although he couldn't be compared to Ling Tian and the others, he could be considered a top monster in the entire eastern border. Of course, Qinling had only just stepped into the divine overlord realm after a year of hard work. His talent was indeed limited. Yes, clan leader. The Qin clan elder narrowed his eyes and didn't dare to say anything. On the other hand, Qinling only looked at the many figures in the sky indifferently without a trace of emotion on his face. Qin clan? Wasn't it destroyed long ago? If I could use this clan to exchange for young master to look at me, so what if I destroyed it again? Unfortunately, he won't. He won't even look at me. Because I'm weak. Perhaps in his eyes, feelings are just restrictions? If that's the case, young master, don't blame me. Are you questioning me? Elder, this is the Ling people, not the Saint sect. Do you really think you can do whatever you want in my clan just because you're an elder of the Saint sect? Ling Tianlin snorted coldly but didn't reply. With the current strength of the Ling people, they wouldn't have any advantage against a god master. The suppression of cultivation realms was really hard to break. However, even if a god master came personally, he might not be able to kill the Ling people easily. He saw the voice transmission talisman in Shui Rou's hand. It was obvious that the conversation between the two had reached the ears of the first god emissary. However, Ling Tianlin didn't know why the first god emissary was looking for Xiao Er's whereabouts, so he didn't dare to reveal it so as to not disrupt Ling Zhao's plan. He already knew what Ling Xiao had done in the past year. This kid was really becoming more and more mature. This way, even if he went to the upper world, he could be completely at ease. That was the true beginning of his immortal path. Ling people, you're wrong. I'm just following orders. Moreover, if the Saint sect really wanted to destroy the Ling people, I wouldn't be the one here now. Shui Rou snorted coldly. No matter how powerful the Ling people were, they were just the Xingzhou ancient clan. With the suppression of a god master, the Saint sect was the power of heaven. How dare you! Ling Tianlin's expression turned cold, and a mysterious light suddenly flickered around him. An invisible force pressed down on heaven and earth. The blue sky darkened and strong winds blew. Endless Dao law light bloomed in the sky, containing endless killing intent. Obviously, the Lord of the Ling people was really angry now. The god emissary's guess was right. Ling Xiao was most likely not in the clan. Seeing this scene, Shui Rou didn't panic at all. Before leaving, God emissary Dugu had given her a life-saving item. As long as Ling Tianlin couldn't kill her in one blow, she had a way to escape. At that time, when the mission was completed, would the God emissary bestow upon her great fortune? Haha, may I know why the Saint Sex Elder is looking for me? But, just as Ling Tianlin was about to attack, a calm and gentle laughter suddenly came from the entrance of the Ling people's secret realm. Hearing this, not only Shui Rou, but also Ling Tianlin's expression turned serious. The entire Cold Sky City suddenly fell into a dead silence. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Everyone raised their heads and looked in the direction of the voice. They saw a white-robed figure walking in the air. His robe fluttered in the wind, and he had a warm smile on his face. There seemed to be 7 colored light floating around him. On his handsome face, there was a touch of calmness after experiencing prosperity. A bright green lotus appeared under his feet, and layers of divine light surged in all directions. At this moment, heaven and earth were silent, and not a sound could be heard. Only the young man stood at the top of the sky, looking down on everything. His temperament was unique, and he was like a god or an immortal. Chapter 771. The sun hung high in the sky. Under the golden sun, Ling Zhao's figure stood quietly, shining as brightly as the sky. His divine features were handsome, and he had an immortal aura. He was like an ancient immortal that had descended to the mortal world, and also like a god that had descended to the mortal world. It was dazzling. It's Master Ling Xiao. It's the young master. Young master, I love you! The entire Cold Sky City was in an uproar. Some girls cried, some geniuses clapped their hands, some elders sat up in shock, and some women jumped. Ling Tianlin narrowed his eyes, but he couldn't help but feel confused. Shouldn't Xiao be in the depths of the sea? Who was this person in front of him? Why were their auras so similar? No, they were the same person. Could it be an avatar? But how old was Xiao? How could he create an avatar? Xiao, you've come out of seclusion. Which of the masters of the ancient race wasn't a scheming individual? Since Ling Xiao chose to appear at this moment, there must be a reason. You're Ling Xiao? Shui Rou calmed down and looked at the young man in front of her. She had to admit that Ling Zhao's appearance and temperament were top-notch. Young immortals were probably the same. It seemed that the divine envoy was overthinking. Shui Rou was a 5th-stage emperor god. How could she not see that the person in front of her was a real person and not a soul consciousness cultivator? Of course, she wouldn't have thought of the possibility of an avatar. Besides, Ling Xiao was only 18 years old. No matter how talented he was just a divine overlord ant in Shui Rou's eyes. How could an ant have any bad intentions? I'm the real one. Elder, may I know why you've come to Ling people? I don't think I've seen the first divine envoy before. May I know why you're looking for me? Ling Xiao looked innocent and curious. Shui Rou didn't know what to do. Haha, young master, you're overthinking. I've heard that you're very handsome. Ling people would like to pay you a visit. Oh, I see. Then, Elder, please come to Ling people for a chat? Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. Since the divine messenger of the saint had taken the initiative to come to him, there was no reason for him not to make use of it. Although a 5th-grade divine emperor was no longer a threat to Ling Xiao, an ant's nest could cause the collapse of a 1,000-mile dike. If he wanted to destroy the saint sect, he had to not let any of the experts of the saint sect go. When the time comes, I will lead everyone into the central border. When the Divine Lord raises his arm and calls for help, he will realize, where did I go? This, all right. Shui Rou pondered for a moment before following Ling Xiao and the others towards the ancient realm of Ling people. However, just as Ling Zhao's figure was about to disappear, his figure suddenly stopped in midair. Then, He slowly turned his head and looked at Cold Sky City with a slightly surprised expression. Qin clan? Young master, at this moment, a blush appeared on Qin Ling's face. Especially when Ling Zhao's gaze landed on him, it almost caused his life to reach its climax. However, in the end, Ling Zhao only nodded his head indifferently and disappeared. Before the excitement on Qin Ling's face dissipated, it completely froze. He is not even willing to smile at me? Ling Zhao. You are heartless, cold, and cruel. In the vast sea region, waves were surging. Dugu Yunjin stood on a deserted island and looked at the spiritual talisman in his hand with a puzzled expression. Ling Zhao is in the eastern border? But why does that voice sound so familiar? Or is the divine order really in his hands and there is someone else in the sea region? Shui Ro, stay in the Ling people and watch over Ling Zhao. If there is anything, report to me immediately. In the end, Dugu Yunjin kept the spiritual talisman and looked at a human-shaped ice sculpture in front of him. At a closer look, the ice sculpture seemed to contain a person, but there was no sign of life. The extreme ice Dao law. It can't be wrong. Yi Qingchan, could it be you? Dugu Yunjin raised his head and looked at the distant sky. The things that happened in the southern border in the past few days had already made him feel a little tired. In the past few hundred years, he had been standing high in the 9 heavens and looking down on the common people. But suddenly, Dugu Yunjin felt that he was being looked down on by someone else. Moreover, even the Xian Wang divination Dao that he had always been good at had lost its effectiveness. Ling Zhao's immortal opportunity seemed to be covered by someone. It also seemed that he was originally independent of the 5 elements, yin and yang. He was not in the cycle of reincarnation and did not enter the 6 paths. Especially at this juncture, they had lost contact with the Divine Master. It was as if everything was completely under someone's control. It was so exquisite that no one could see through it or guess it. But it was a kind of uneasy feeling. But it was fine. When they found Yi Qingchan's trace, they should also meet this saint of the sacred sect. Then, everything would be clear. In the Ling people's main hall, Ling Tianlin sat on the main seat and looked at Shui Ro indifferently. On the way back to the clan, he had already sent a message to the elders of all the factions to unify their statements. Ling Zhao had been in seclusion in the clan and only came out today. No matter what Shui Ro's intentions were, since she was in the territory of the Ling people, she was just a bird with broken wings. Her fate was only hanging by a thread. Master Ling Zhao, you indeed have the demeanor of an immortal. One look and I can tell that you are not an ordinary person. Young master has been in seclusion in the Ling people. Shui Ro sipped the tea in her cup. It seemed like a compliment, but it was also a kind of test. That's right. Ling Zhao smiled gently and looked calm. Behind him, Hua stood quietly. The demonic aura around her was suppressed like a servant girl. Oh, I wonder if young master has been to the southern border before? Never. Haha, then young master should go to the southern border to take a look. The southern border's vast sea region is beautiful and full of demonic talents. Given young master's demeanor, you should go to the ends of the world and show the might of the human race. Although it is stable to stay in one place, it is still lacking in tenacity. Shui Ro nodded her head lightly. Ling Zhao suddenly grinned and said, Elder is right. Elder Shui, why don't you rest in my clan for a few days and then bring me to the southern border? I also admire the first divine emissary very much. Ling Zhao looked up and looked at Shui Ro with a burning gaze. The hand that Shui Ro used to hold the tea suddenly trembled for a moment and then calmed down. Oracle Dugu had ordered her to keep a close eye on Ling Zhao. She did not expect that this young man would take the initiative to invite her to travel with him. This was really... Heaven was helping her. Originally, Shui Ro had some concerns among the Ling people. After all, she had never seen through Ling Tianlin's strength. Once Ling Zhao chose to go into seclusion again, even if she was an elder of the saint, she could not stop him. But now it was the feeling of success. That's great. Master Ling Xiao, I will rest for a day and return to the southern border tomorrow. Okay. In the end, Shui Rou smiled brightly and followed a servant of the Ling people to the back of the palace. Only after her figure disappeared did Ling Tianlin look at Hua Hua warily. Xiao, this is, father, don't worry. She is one of us. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Ling Tianlin waved his hand and set up a barrier to cover the entire palace. Xiao, what is going on? At this moment, Ling Tianlin still had many doubts in his heart. The barrier that he set up could not have gone wrong. But how did Ling Xiao cross the sea and return to the Ling people? Father, this is my Tao body incarnation. Ling Xiao put down the teacup and looked up at Ling Tianlin. From his father's expression, he had some guesses. It seemed that his father had been tracking his whereabouts for the past year through some unknown means. Sure enough, he was hiding something from him. Chapter 772. Outer Body Incarnation? Ling Tianlin was surprised and didn't speak for a long time. It seemed that Ling Xiao had indeed grown a lot in the past year. Outer body incarnation was something that even those who had reached the saint realm might not be able to do, let alone a teenager. However, if that was the case, it would make sense. Father, how has the eastern border been this year? Ling Xiao looked gentle and leaned lazily on the golden chair behind him. It was only in the Ling clan and in front of his father that he could truly feel at ease. The more Ling Xiao saw, the more he felt that the Ling people and the elixir sacred ground were unusual. His father and mother must be hiding something from him. Now the eastern border is completely under the control of the Ling people. Even the demon sect has become a vassal of the Ling people. Ling Tianlin smiled faintly and threw a Qinquan bag to Ling Xiao. Xiao, there are some spiritual stones and pills inside. Keep them for yourself. Thank you, father, but don't you have anything else to tell me? For example, the boundary-breaking talisman? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a playful light, while Ling Tianlin's face turned serious. After a long while, he shook his head and smiled. The more you know now, the easier it will affect your Taoist heart. When the time is right, I will tell you. Okay. Father, if there's nothing else, I will return to the southern border tomorrow. Ling Xiao nodded. Since Ling Tianlin didn't want to tell him, he must have his reasons. What he needed to do now was to find the real secret of the Xingzhou continent, and then become invincible in this world. If you have time, go and see your mother. Lin Meng is gone. She must be lonely in the elixir sacred ground. Ling Tianlin sighed softly, his face filled with inexplicable vicissitudes. Okay. Ling Xiao got up, bowed to Ling Tianlin, and turned to leave. Xiao. Ling Tianlin suddenly opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something. Father, is there anything else? No. Don't worry and do it boldly. I will take care of everything for you. I understand, father. Ling Xiao nodded lightly. However, the moment he walked out of the great hall, he saw Qin Ling, who was dressed in a golden robe, standing outside the great hall. His appearance was extremely respectful. Young master, you're back. Clan head Qin, is something the matter? Ling Zhao's brows raised slightly. Especially that wisp of resentment in Qin Ling's eyes, it caused him to feel a wave of disgust from the bottom of his heart. It's nothing. It's just that I haven't seen you in a year and I miss you, young master. Oh. Ling Xiao shook his head, chuckled, and left. From start to finish, he didn't even look at Qin Ling. F***ck. This Qin Ling is obviously gay. Do I have to give him a chance? Ling people, why don't you just obediently continue to be the leader of the Qin clan and work yourself to the bone for my Ling people? Isn't it nice? You actually want to think about such useless things? Young master, you are still as cold and arrogant as ever. The corners of Qin Ling's mouth suddenly curled into a sinister smile, and even the light in his eyes gradually turned into a wisp of resentment. It was impossible for him to not know that Ling Xiao was in seclusion. Previously, when the Qin clan moved to Cold Sky City, he had personally asked Ling Tian about Ling Xiao's whereabouts. Although Lord Ling didn't say it clearly, Qin Ling was sure that Ling Xiao wasn't with the Ling people. In other words, Ling Xiao's appearance today was simply too coincidental. On the second day, when the sky just lit up, Ling Xiao and Shui Rou left Cold Sky City together and headed towards the Origin Core sacred ground. At the same time, news spread out from the Qin clan. The leader of the Qin clan, Qin Ling, had returned to the Qin clan and was in seclusion. He swore that he wouldn't come out until he reached the God King realm. Origin Core sacred ground, below the mountain. Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. Elder Shui, I'm going to bid farewell to my mother. Are you going to follow me up the mountain or wait here? I'll wait for you at the foot of the mountain. Shui Rou also needed to send a message to the first God messenger. Previously, when she was in the Ling people, she could feel that there were many spies around. Thus, she didn't take the risk. Okay. Ling Xiao didn't say much. How could he not know what Shui Rou and Duguyunjin were thinking? However, since he had entered the situation himself, he naturally had a foolproof plan. Qin Chu. Now that he was a famous demon in the sea, he would be targeted by Duguyunjin sooner or later. And Ling Xiao definitely wouldn't allow this leek to be harvested by others. Otherwise, the previous plundering would be meaningless. In other words, Ling Xiao would personally kill him and get the kill reward. But in this way, it was inevitable that he would be exposed. Once the 6 demons knew that Qin Chu died in his hands, the plan would fail. Therefore, he needed a chance to hide his identity. As a villain, he couldn't take the slightest risk. Senior Great Demon, I'm standing right in front of you. The one who killed young Master Qin Chu can't be me, right? It wasn't until Ling Xiao's figure was far away that Shui Rou took out a voice transmission talisman and said in a deep voice, Master Dugu, Ling Xiao and I are rushing to Nanjiang. Okay. On the other end of the voice transmission talisman, Dugu Yunjin's voice was obviously cold. For 3 days in a row, he searched the sea but didn't find any trace of the ice demon. This demon's whereabouts were unpredictable and without any pattern. Moreover, she was extremely familiar with the sea's terrain. Compared to Qin Chu, Chen Qingshan, and the others, the ice demon made Dugu Yunjin feel more uneasy. If she was really that person, the Xingzhou would welcome a new catastrophe. It might even be more terrifying than 300 years ago, and once what he did was known by the upper realm, he would most likely die even if he begged for it. Elder Shui. Just as Shui Rou put away the talisman and looked into the distance, a chuckle suddenly came from the forest in the distance. Then, Qin Ling walked out together with the Qin clan's God Emperor and stood in front of Shui Rou. From the moment Ling Xiao left the city, Qin Ling could tell that he wasn't heading to Nanjiang but the Dan Origin sacred ground. In order to avoid exposing his whereabouts, Qin Ling stayed 100 miles behind the two. He had been tailing them the whole time and finally found an opportunity. Who are you? Shui Rou frowned slightly, and a vast and mighty spirit might immediately surrounded her. Elder Shui, this junior is Qin Ling. I am the master of the Qin clan, a vassal of the Ling people. Today I have something to tell you. Qin Ling's expression was calm. Since he had chosen this path, he had already thought of the worst possible outcome. At most, he would die. Now, the Qin clan only existed in name and was reduced to a slave race. He originally thought that he would be able to receive Ling Xiao's attention because of this. However, in the end it was just wishful thinking. Since that was the case, he could only change his method. When you are at the end of your rope and fall into a dead end, Ling Xiao, will you regret your coldness toward me back then? Oh? What is it? Shui Rou frowned slightly. Ling people's vassal? But why did this Qin Ling have such a sneaky look? Elder, may I ask why you are looking for Ling Xiao? Impudent! Who do you think you are? How dare you inquire about the Holy Church's actions? Shui Ro shouted coldly. Her emperor's might suddenly descended, nearly killing Qin Ling on the spot. A trace of blood flowed down from the corner of Qin Ling's mouth. However, he still had a bright smile on his face. If I say that I can tell Elder some information that you want, will Elder give me a chance? Information that you want. Shui Ro's eyes narrowed slightly, and her expression calmed down again. Tell me the reason why you are here. Otherwise, die. Elder, Ling Xiao was not in the clan before this. Qin Ling grinned. However, the words he said stunned Shui Ro. What? Chapter 773. A year ago, the young master of the Ling people, Ling Xiao, left the eastern border. It is said that he went to the western border. During this time, he did not return to the clan. Qin Ling's eyes were cold, but there was an inexplicable pain in his heart. This feeling of betrayal was indeed oppressive. However, the more it was so, the more it made him feel an indescribable pleasure. At this moment, Qin Ling wished that Ling Xiao could kneel in front of him and repent. Only then could he erase the hatred in his heart. Went to the western border? Shui Ro frowned and stared at Qin Ling. What else do you know? Tell me everything. Elder Shui seems to be following orders, right? I want to report to the first divine envoy directly. Impudent! You. Elder, even if you kill me, what's the point? Moreover, this is the Pill Origin sacred ground. I'm afraid that once you take action, Ling Xiao will notice it. Qin Ling shook his head and did not panic at all because of Shui Ro's anger. What he wanted, an elder of the sacred ground could not give him. You better be able to satisfy the divine envoy. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to walk out of this forest today. Shui Ro clenched her teeth and took out the divine sound transmission talisman. Lord Dugu. What's the matter? There's a young man from the eastern border here. He said that he has information that you want to know. Give him the talisman. Lord Dugu. Qin Ling took the talisman, but there was no joy on his face. Or rather, from the moment he chose to betray Ling Xiao, there was probably nothing in this world that could make him feel happy. Except for his regret. Speak, what do you want to tell me? If I'm not wrong, Ling Xiao should have returned to the Ling people today. If Lord wants to know his whereabouts, I can go along the western border and investigate for you. When Ling Xiao left the eastern border, Yi Qinchan followed him. Even if he intentionally hid his whereabouts, he would still leave some traces. Furthermore, a few days ago, the second young master of the Ling people, Ling Tian, suddenly returned to the clan and left in a hurry. Yesterday, Qin Ling had already sent someone to the 10,000 Sword Immortal sect to investigate, and Ling Tian did not return to the sect. Perhaps, his whereabouts would be the key to revealing Ling Zhao's whereabouts. Why are you doing this? Dugu Yunjin's voice was extremely low, without the slightest hint of joy or sorrow, but it inexplicably made people feel stifled. I want to join the Holy Church. I want to be respected. Qin Ling's eyes flickered with scarlet. Only now did he realize why he would feel joy from betrayal. Respect. That's right, Ling Xiao never gave him the respect he deserved. Sure. If you can really find out Ling Zhao's whereabouts, I will personally accept you as my disciple. Shui Ro, pass this sound transmission talisman to this young master. Bring Ling Xiao to the Immortal Mystic sect to see me. Yes, my lord. Hearing that, Shui Ro's face was somewhat astonished, while Qin Ling kept the golden talisman with a radiant smile. Elder Shui, we will meet again someday. Young Master Qin, we will meet again someday. Shui Ro's expression was gloomy, but in the end, she actually cupped her hands towards Qin Ling and bowed. It was supposed to be a great merit, but why did it suddenly feel like it was intercepted by someone else? In the vast sea region, Dugu Yunjin stood in the void with his hands behind his back, pondering. If Ling Xiao really returned to the Ling people today, then he definitely knew something. And in the entire sea region, only 2 people knew about Dugu Yunjin's plan. Eugene! Buzz. In Dugu Yunjin's hand another talisman flickered, but he did not receive a reply for a long time. As expected? Is it a coincidence, or did I underestimate you? Lord Dugu. Just as Dugu Yunjin was pondering, Eugene's voice suddenly sounded from the other side of the golden talisman. Dugu Yunjin's eyes narrowed, but he was even more puzzled. Where are you? The Dead Sea region. Where's Ling Xiao? I just entered the sea region, so I didn't dare to rashly go forward, so I guarded the periphery of the sea region. Once you discover his whereabouts, report it immediately. Dugu Yunjin kept the golden talisman and remained silent for a long time. Could it be that I'm overthinking it? At the same time, in the depths of the sea region, Folded Shadow looked at the divine talisman in his hand, and a cold smile appeared on his face. His lord is indeed a divine strategist. Core Origin Sacred Ground, Peak Hall. Ling Xiao looked helplessly at the red-eyed moon of Xianyuan in front of him. Mother, aren't I back now? You little brat, it's been a year and you don't know how to send a message to your mother. You're only back now, and you still think you're reasonable? Moon of Xianyuan was wearing a red robe, and there was a hint of hatred between her brows. Her world was extremely simple. In the past, there were 2 people, but now there was only Ling Xiao left. How long do you plan to stay this time? Look at you, you've lost weight. Mother, I'll be leaving soon. The Saint Elder is still waiting for me at the foot of the mountain. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled bitterly. If the moon of Xianyuan were in the modern world, she would be a typical protective demon. If Ling Xiao's soul had not transmigrated here, no matter how talented the eldest son of the Ling people was or how deep his background was, he would not have been able to escape the fate of death in the end. The Saint Elder? In an instant, the look on Moon of Xuanyuan's face suddenly turned cold, and a torrential momentum suddenly fell. Endless Tao patterns evolved from the void, causing the space to collapse and the ancient mountain to tremble. Mother, don't be agitated. It's okay. I deliberately led her here. Deliberately? Xiao what realm are you in now? Even with the strength of the moon of Xianyuan, she could not see through Ling Xiao's cultivation at this time. Although the stronger Xiao was, the happier she should be. However, inexplicably, there seemed to be a complicated look in the eyes of the moon of Xianyuan. 5th grade Divine King. Have you already reached the Divine King realm? Xiao you really didn't disappoint me. With your talent, even if you look at, that Saint Elder, do you want me to help you kill him? The moon of Xianyuan wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. There was a touch of kindness on her face. No, mother. After I finish my business in the sea area, I'll come back with Meng to accompany you for a few days. You only know how to make me happy. When didn't you say that? Meng is talented. Even if you don't have time, I'll be happy if you give me a grandson quickly. The moon of Xianyuan glared at Ling Xiao fiercely and took out a Qiankuan bag from her arms. There are 100 elixirs above the 5th grade in this bag. You haven't been back for a year. Our Danyuan sacred land has saved some resources. Thank you, mother. Ling Xiao bowed. Finally, under the reluctant gaze of the moon of Xianyuan, he turned around and walked down the mountain. Although he was set as a villain, he had to admit that whether it was the moon of Xianyuan or Ling Tianlin, they both gave him a lot of care. These 2 people were the only people in this world that Ling Xiao could completely trust and have no misgivings. Young master, are you done with your business? At the foot of the mountain, Shui Ro looked at the figure coming from the top of the mountain and smiled coldly. Let's go, Elder Shui. We can finally see the scenery of southern border. Ling Xiao turned his head and glanced at the top of the mountain. He saw a red-robed figure standing quietly in front of the main hall on the top of the mountain. The mountain wind messed up her hair and fluttered her red robe. She stood aloof from the world and gave off a sense of eternity. Young master, where's your servant girl? Shui Ro glanced at the direction behind Ling Xiao with some doubts. A trace of vigilance flashed in her eyes. I told her to stay here and take care of mother, Ling Xiao said indifferently and took the lead to walk toward the south. At the same time, in the back mountain of the Danyuan sacred land, Hua also revealed her true body and rushed toward the center of eastern border. Now that the Divine Lord was missing and 2 of the 4 divine envoys were dead, the sacred sect's control over the 4 borders was no longer as terrifying as before. However, Dugu Yunjin was too mysterious and gave Ling Xiao a sense of familiarity. Therefore, he still needed to arrange some other means so that it could be called foolproof. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.